Okay, we're going to go ahead and call to order our city council meeting. Today is August 28, 2019. Location, 65 Stone Street, Cocoa City Council Chambers. The time is 6 p.m. And we're going to have our invocation by Pastor Wash, and we'll have Councilman Goin lead us in the pledge. And if I can please have you all stand.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, thank you for your loving kindness and your multitude of tender mercies. We give your name the praise on this evening, for you have been good to us in the city of Cocoa. I pray, Father, that you will cover us and our county in the midst of the storm that is happening. I pray that in all our getting, we would get an understanding on tonight, that you would continue to bless the city of Cocoa with all of his staff and with all of his residents. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Pastor Wash, and that's the real church in Cocoa. And roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Warner. Here. Councilmember Bovair.
Here.
Councilmember Goins.
Here. Sorry about that.
Councilmember Koss.
Here.
City Attorney Garganese.
Here.
City Manager Takanich.
Here.
And Assistant City Manager here.
He's here in the hallway.
Okay. Okay, before we move on to our agenda minutes, which there's no minutes, or our agenda, there's a couple of changes that need to happen on there. Item number 1 in the city business needs to be tabled. And then item number 3 is now going to be item number 6, and then all the others will shift up. 4 would be 3, 5 would be 4, and 6 would be 5. If I can get a motion with those changes. We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner, a second from Councilman Bovair. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. All right, thank you. And we're gonna move on to awards and presentation. We got a presentation by the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization.
And while she's doing that, we can introduce Georgiana Gillette, Executive Director of the Space Coast, or the, Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I really appreciate this time to spend with you. I don't think I have actually presented at the Cocoa Council, so this is quite a pleasure. And so I just wanted to take a little bit of time to kind of talk to you about some of the projects that are going on in the area. I think there's a lot happening, and it's well overdue. So for members that I don't know, we are your transportation planning agency responsible for coordinating state and federal transportation funding here in Brevard County. So the influence of each mode really transcends jurisdictional boundaries. An example would be the growth of the port leads to the need for the beach line to be widened. So someone really needs to be looking at the big picture, coordinating and communicating, planning among all the different modes. So the roads don't stop at city limits, and the user really doesn't care who owns the road. They just want to get to where they're going in a reasonable and dependable time frame. So it's critical that we view transportation holistically and that we talk to each other about how to improve it. And so the TPO is a forum where those conversations can occur. So there are a few basic facts of life in Brevard, and that is we only have 3 continuous north-south roadways, and that's I-95, US 1, and A1A, and east-west depends on 7 causeways, and good mobility is critical to knit the community together socially and economically. So we also have to think regionally. Our market is larger than any single entity. We need good regional connectivity for tourism, goods movement, and access to the Orlando facilities. We depend on them, but they in turn rely on us. We have the beaches, Kennedy Space Center, Port Canaveral, and many fabulous assets that they want to come here and visit. So I'm going to dive into some of the big projects that are going on in the area. And I'm going to start with some of the long-term projects. And the first one would be the beach line from Industry Road to Port Canaveral. It's being designed right now by the DOT. But just to bring you up to date on what's going on with this project, it is currently on hold at this time because, as we know, improving the health of the lagoon is a very big focus for everyone right now. And there have been a lot of discussions on causeway removal and how to incorporate that into this particular project. So the latest developments involves the St. Johns River Water Management offering to run a water quality model. And this will produce some quantitative results on causeway removal, specifically over the Banana River. And so they have offered to do this, and this conversation will be happening at our governing board meeting in September. And so I just want to make you aware of that. If we do decide to go that route after this water quality analysis, it will delay the project. But of course, we will have done our due diligence, which is what we're really after here. So as this particular project progresses and we find out the direction, we will keep you up to date on what's happening. So the future widening of Clear Lake Road from Michigan to Industry is number 4 on our regionally significant priority list. It is a high priority. The PD&E, which is the environmental study and the design, is complete. It's been sitting on the shelf for a couple years now, I believe. But unfortunately, right-of-way and construction remains unfunded. The improvement will be 2 travel lanes in each direction, a 22-foot wide median, 7-foot buffered bike lanes, 6-foot wide sidewalks on both sides, lighting. It will be, a beautiful project for the community, but we need to try and get right-of-way and construction funding sooner rather than later. So the 524 widening, that PD&E, the environmental study, kicked off earlier this year. We know that there's been a lot of recent planned development happening along the corridor. There's also a need to balance all the different modes. There's bicycle and pedestrian traffic, 2 transit routes along the corridor. So what will be happening is a traffic analysis. They'll be looking at crash history in more detail, drainage impacts, what the noise abatement might be will be part of this study, if there will be noise walls that will be needed. But public involvement is going to be a very large part of this project. Specifically, we talked to the consultant about that. So you will be hearing a lot more about this project as it kind of progresses and moves forward. So now I'm going to move into some short-term improvements, and when I say short-term, I'm talking probably within 5 years. And the first one is going to be Fisk, the resurfacing from the I-95 northbound ramps at Barnes Boulevard to State Road 520. Last year, a corridor study was recently completed, and the purpose of that corridor study was to determine how we can make that corridor safer. Lots of bicyclists and pedestrians going up and down that corridor, crossing the corridor, lots of schools. And so it is a really important project to look at that particular element. But as it turned out, there's a resurfacing project that the DOT decided it was time due to pavement condition. And so what the project, the design is underway for the milling and resurfacing. And and construction is programmed in 2021. So what the DOT did was kind of look at that corridor study and determined what elements for bike ped safety could they pull out and incorporate into the resurfacing. And so they're going to put 6-foot marked bicycle lanes, buffered bicycle lanes. They're going to improve all of the transit stops, bus stop access to connect to the proposed sidewalk and fill in all of the sidewalk gaps. So that was as much as we could get incorporated into the resurfacing, but that construction will be beginning fairly soon, and I think it will help the corridor tremendously. We need some traffic calming along there. So 520 resurfacing, this is another resurfacing project from Aurora Road to Hubert Humphrey Causeway. Now the picture I have up there came from another corridor study that we did a couple years ago to look at the 520 through the one-way pairs to see how we could make that more pedestrian friendly, how we could calm traffic along that corridor. But again, it's another situation where the DOT is scoping the resurfacing. And so we thought it was a great opportunity. We worked with Ed Weigriff to incorporate bike ped improvements into that resurfacing. The additional bike ped improvements were going to come to about 1.7 million above and beyond what this resurfacing was going to cost, and that would be for both eastbound and westbound sides. So the TPO has set aside that money, and we feel that that is a good investment in the community. It's what we were after all along, and it's a lot of bang for the buck, because not having a separate project just to do those improvements, that would increase the cost. And so this is a really good investment in the community. So some of the improvements would be would consist of reducing the lane widths, providing bulb outs on the street, bulb outs and on-street parking to improve that pedestrian safety, slowing traffic by clearly designating the allowable movements along that corridor is going to be very important. So traffic calming, better pedestrian crosswalks as well. So what the DOT is proposing right now is construction in 2024. We were hoping that it would be 2023, but they could not get it programmed this particular cycle. So that's what I learned as of last week. And then I have to mention Virgin Trains, because we all know that there's a lot going on the north side of 528. You know, this has been under discussion since 2014, back when we talked about it at the TPO Governing Board. The station location study was completed in 2016, with Cocoa being the preferred location for a future station. And so we know where the location is. We know that Brightline Virgin owns the land there along US 1 for the station. But they do want to make sure that they do a ridership study, which they are saying that they will do later this year. They originally told us they were going to do it earlier this year. However, now that the Treasure Coast will be getting a station, we were told that they would prefer to do it at the same time, use the same consultant to do both riderships, not only at the Brevard area, but the Treasure Coast as well. So we're very hopeful. We don't want the train to fly by and it not stop here. It won't happen right away. The service will be moving through, but we're confident that that will happen. And so, you know, passenger rail was identified in our long-range transportation plan as a vision. And I got to tell you, Brightline Virgin Trains is the answer to that vision. It's not going to happen any other way. And so, you know, with 126 million visitors that moved through Florida in 2018, we as planners have to look for alternative ways to move people. And so we think that this is going to be really a big deal for us here in Florida. So we're very excited about that. And I will just end on this slide. You know, these are transportation planning takeaways. And, You know, most of our citizens, one of the biggest things that I think they don't realize is just how expensive transportation projects are and how long they take. Too long, you know, they're 25-year plans, and a lot of these projects sometimes do take that long. There's a process to identify and agree upon these very important projects. And providing transportation in the United States, it takes federal, state, and local government, and I will say private, because I do think there is a place for private funding in the fabric of transportation, which is another reason why I'm very happy about the Virgin Train. And the decision-making process begins with a TPO board of elected officials, and of course, our citizens are very important in that. And I just want to say thank you all for your leadership. Mayor Williams, Councilmember Koss, we appreciate you so much, and all of council. And it is fabulous to see you again as a longstanding member of our TPO governing board over the many years. So thank you very much. I'll open it up to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Georgiana. We appreciate that. And Councilwoman Cost.
Oh, yeah, so you said the ridership study would be later this year. Is that in 2020?
2019, yes.
Okay,
This
so,
year.
oh,
Yes.
okay. And are they expected to make an announcement then?
You know, that's a good question. I think that once they get that ridership done, I certainly do think that they would make an announcement, and COCO would probably be the first to know. That would be a very big announcement, and they probably would want to make a big deal about it. So I would expect that to happen, yes.
Okay, and I understand there was a meet, I think it was at the library of Merritt Island, and there was someone, they were talking about if that ridership study looks like a go, it would be 2027.
Whenever we've met with Rusty Roberts before, he has told us that it would probably be 5 years after service was moving through. So, that sounds within that time frame. So I do not think it would happen right away. I think what they're wanting to do is to get that service moving and established, and then they will be looking at the stations on the Treasure Coast and in Brevard. And from what he has told me, he would predict that those two stations would happen in tandem. In other words, they would open at the same time as well.
Okay. Okay. May I ask one more question? So I just came from the airport, and there's a lot of clearing going on. Is that the 528 widening, or because it was like on both sides of the road, or is that the train?
That would be the train. That is
Okay.
the
So
train.
widening hasn't started at all?
The widening of 528?
Right.
Absolutely not. No, there's nothing on way out there.
Okay.
There is a resurfacing, I will mention. There's a lot going on. There's a
Yeah.
resurfacing of the turnpike is resurfacing their portion, and so you see that pavement. They're putting down pavement. And then, of course, Brightline Virgin is clearing on the north side, and of course, the train will be going on the south side, west of 95. But there's also some other clearing going on, and I think that's for a fence. So there's a lot of action going on, and it is confusing as to what is happening exactly where and who's doing it, but
A lot of money and a lot of moving parts.
yes.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Georgie. Nice seeing you.
Well, thank you.
Good
We
to see
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on to our delegation. And up first, first up, we have Mr. Alan Chapman from HCVA NS. It's HCVNS. That's what I see all there, so. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Sort of like the one you used to ride, right?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Alan Chapman. I'm with the Historic Cocoa Village Main Street Organization. First time we've been able to say that. Right now, we are located at 600 Florida Avenue, Suite 104, right here in Cocoa, but we are moving very shortly into the Porsche House, thanks to the good graces of the City of Cocoa. The process of creating or recreating Main Street organization here in Cocoa Village has been a lengthy one. It's been one that's been enjoyable at times and challenging, certainly, at times. I'd like to thank publicly Samantha Sanger, Public Relations Specialist with the City Manager's Office, for all her help in this effort. And I would also like to recognize Robin Green, Secretary, and Russell Glover, President of Cocoa Main Street, for all their help and assistance with this. And I would also like to recognize Emma Kirkpatrick, Secretary, and Nancy Elliott, President of Historic Cocoa Village Association. All of us have put a lot of work into making this happen. There were two tasks. One was the re-compliance of the Main Street program here in the City of Cocoa. And on August 20th, we received a letter from the Office of the Secretary of State indicating that we had satisfied all requirements and that we were now in compliance as a Main Street program. And last night, at a board meeting, a joint board meeting of the Cocoa Main Street and Historic Cocoa Village Association in the Porsche House, we united and merged into Historic Cocoa Village Main Street. We look forward to a long and productive relationship with the City of Cocoa. And all of you, I know this is not a great surprise, but I hope you weren't holding your breath, but we did get it done. Thank you so much for all your support, both staff and City Council. Much appreciated, and we will serve you well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Comments? Okay. Up next, and we appreciate you there, Mr. Chapman, and next we got Alex Greenwood. Please state your name and address and all that.
Alex Greenwood, 640 Brevard Avenue, Cocoa, Florida. I'm going to try to be brief, and this is a continuation from the last time that I had brought this up in reference to the members that are available for seating for the CRA. The original intent was something that didn't make sense to me when I heard it, because I found out from talking with Anthony Garganese that the Florida statutes were changed. The intent originally, when the CRA was created, which back then it was called RDA, was the property owners that would make their properties available for people to come and do business in the village, which equals merchants. The people that owned the property, their taxes is what remained in the downtown Cocoa district rather than going to the county. And that's something that I personally went before the Brevard County board and asked for it, and we got it. Being one of the only remaining original representatives, I can read, and I'm hesitant to take the time, what the original requirements are from the original RDA when it was first created. And basically, the property owners, their taxes that they paid would go back into the downtown area to eliminate blight and eliminate ironically, people breaking into buildings, people shooting each other. I mean, it was not a place to go for business. People that were buying property then were doing it on a very big risk basis, hoping that things would get better. And ironically, it's become as successful as it has already. With that being said, now the requirements to be on the CRA board has been reduced and altered, and I'm wanting to see if I could get a consensus that supports the fact that we cannot ignore the property owners that own property there that is directly involved with the taxes going back into the area there. And what that means is, I'm thinking of meeting with Bill Posey and also Mrs. Mayfield in order to get that process going. But I'd like to see if I could actually add a consensus from the council that to make a right wrong, and that is to also include the property owners that are in there. We are also paying business tax, which is the same thing that our merchants are paying. And I have nothing against the merchants. It's just this is a situation where the original reason that it made it successful, those property owners are being ignored about getting involved. Tonight's vacancy, I highly recommend that you consider a property owner to be the replacement. I'd rather see Jan still be on until this gets resolved. I don't know how that can be a possibility, but it's all on the board's decisions. I'd like to know if I could get the support
Okay, Mr.
that I could have to meet with Bill Posey and also Representative Mayfield.
Thank you there, Mr. Greenwood. It's something that, and I'll let the city attorney go ahead and address that as well.
I think historically, the city council establishes its legislative agenda, like a coordinated effort in working with the city's state lobbyist. So, I mean, that's, I think, something that maybe the city manager wants to chime in on whether you all want to consider that at the appropriate time as a possible COCO initiative, but that would be a decision for the council to make.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
Will this impact, well, it does work. The impact would not just be related to the city of Cocoa. It would have statewide impact. And in light of House Bill 9 passing this last legislative session, I do not believe that there will be an appetite, nor would there be support from the League or the League of Cities or the Florida Redevelopment Association to try and bring back a CRA bill that for 3 years that we fought in the trenches to try to make it palatable, implementable, while also ensuring accountability and transparency. I just don't think that there's going to be an appetite. I already know the League is a stat. They're going through the legislative policy process making for determining the legislative agenda, and the committee that would handle this matter, it's not something that they want. I mean, there's a glitch I'd like to get fixed in the most recent bill, but nobody wants to take it back because you don't want to open it up to other potential changes. We got a bill passed that we were able to get amended that made it practical, implementable, while also enhancing and ensuring CRAs are accountable, transparent, and enables them to do their job. And I don't think you would find much support to address this issue at this point in time, my opinion.
And it will be somewhat of a home rule issue too as well, because we'll be pushing our will, or trying to push our will onto other municipalities, you know.
And just,
It's just something to,
I would just add, Mr. Mayor and Council, I mean, I recently at the Florida League of Cities Conference, spoke on the legislation and what it means to cities and CRAs. And in that presentation with other panel members, I think there's no less than 40, changes to the law since it was adopted, at least bills. And it just, at this point in time, I don't see the League or the FRA willing to take that up for such a arguably important to you, but arguably a minor change in light of everything that's happened in the last couple of years. It was a true battle for home rule. I think we prevailed.
and I mean, I understand where Mr. Greenwood's coming from, but
They're long-term,
I would need something just a little bit more than what we have right now to consider something like this, but
Could I
don't
continue
know.
the conversation with the city attorney about the possibilities, or should I, I'd like to get some more input from the rest of the council, because the property owners, like, for example, myself and a lot of other people, we still own the property. We're still paying the
No, we
taxes.
got you, Mr. Greenwood, but let me.
So I'm hoping that-
Councilwoman
No, I was
Cox.
just going to say, ironically, I mean, you would be eligible to serve on the CRA because you live here. You're talking about people that don't live here, but we're fortunate and we're wise enough to buy here.
Yes.
And we've now, the property is now appraising higher. But, I mean, one of my concerns is the way the commissioners will look at this
Oh.
from the gentrification issue. Because the purpose of the CRA is not just to serve the people that own property in the CRA. And we've talked about this before. My taxes go to Cocoa Village as well as where I live. I don't have the advantage of having taxes, the taxes I pay just go to my neighborhood. They go to everyone, as well as Cocoa Village. But we understand Cocoa Village to be that engine that we want to invest in that will make us all elevate. So the gentrification issue is one to me that I would be concerned about how that would be viewed, and particularly with the commissioners looking at it so skeptically as it is. I mean,
Well, the whole purpose was to get rid of a blighted area, or we wouldn't have what we got.
right.
And that's the difference between the city
Mayor,
property
do you-
taxes and the taxes for that area.
Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do have one comment. We've been fighting our county commission, we've been fighting the state just to hang on to our CRAs. And, it's kind of like no attention is good attention at this point, which is
Yeah.
kind of basically what John said.
So timing
It's
is
a
bad.
fight every single day to keep the county commission and the state legislature from doing away with CRAs, to rock the boat for that, and cause them to look at us again and go, well, there's another reason why we need to get rid of these people, look what they're doing now. So it's
It's
just
a
like,
shame.
like Councilwoman Cost says, in the city manager, there's just no appetite out there for it. We would be asking the state to make a change that's gonna affect the whole state. We're never gonna get that support in Tallahassee, ever.
Okay. Well,
But
at
anyway,
least,
thank you to Mr.
at least I
Greenwood.
tried, so thank you very much.
I was just, for yours and the public's edification or information,
Thank you, John.
you know, the House bill that passed versus the Senate bill that was actually, you know, put into law, the House bill was draconian. The House is by far not in favor and would like to gut the CRAs if they could. And the Senate bill version ultimately prevailed. And so that's why we would be concerned.
Okay, I didn't know that. I'll pass that on, I guess. Thank you
sir.
very much.
Up next, we have Donna Kettner.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Jake Williams, all the city council members, staff. We have a hurricane coming. I know we'll be boarding up and preparing for this. The problem of the waterfall and the flooding is going to continue to come in the back door and go out my front door. So I'm here this evening because nothing has changed since I came before you. And I would like to make sure that I have plenty of sandbags for this storm coming, and that we can get together and solve this. This is a problem that's not going to go away. It's not going away. So let's get together, find a solution, and fix it once and for all. But Sunday, we have the hurricane supposedly coming towards us. So I ask you to please supply me, because it is going to be disastrous for me. And I need your help. It was not supposed to happen to me. We were supposed to have a retention pond there. We were supposed to have everything flowing correctly. Again, I say, in all the years I've been there, I've never had this issue. This is a major problem that's not getting fixed. I'm talking to Mike. Mike owns the building next door to me. We know this is a problem. We're willing to work together. John, maybe you can get all parties together. We can meet and we can fix this once and for all. Because it's not going to go away. The rainy season's going to come every year, and I can't deal with it anymore. It is, you know, Jake, you've seen me. I have shop vacuums going. I have fans going. I have people coming to remove mold. I'm beside myself. This was not supposed to happen. I was guaranteed by the city of Cocoa that I would not be flooded out with the new construction. So, please, someone get back to me before the hurricane comes. I'm going to start boarding up as soon as possible to prepare for this, and I need your help to get sandbags on the inside of my building, and let's get together as a community. I've spent a lot of years working very hard to be here in this town, to make it a better town, and I have no more words to say. I'm asking you, please, let's get this fixed.
How many sandbags do you need?
For a hurricane, for the amount of water that comes through the back door, I would say we need to get probably 100 sandbags just to deter the water to go outside rather than through my building and through Pub Americana, because we're taking all the flow, and the pipe, the way it is, it's just backing up and gushing out. It's not even getting to where it's supposed to be. So for a temporary fix, I have to do something, so at least the water gets pushed outside and to Delanoy rather than through my back door and out my front door.
There-
Please, help me.
Mr. Assistant City Manager, we had a discussion about this a couple of 3 weeks ago. There were some diversions they were gonna do with some sandbags. Did that never happen, or?
No, there were, is this on? There we go. There were some sandbags that were moved into that back alleyway. I don't know if you've had any impacts in the last 2 weeks?
I have, I still continue to get water because the way
They're
the
working on it.
piping is back there, you've seen it, okay? You have so much water that it's breaking the pipe and coming out, and you can see it just going right into Pub America, because they have the same problem I have. And the water, there's too much water for that drain system that was put in there that was supposed to fix the problem in the first place, and there's no retention pond for it to go to. All you have is a pipe that big to take the water from Brevard Avenue that comes down the hill, just like I said it was gonna come down the hill. That property used to be a lake.
Could you get in the mic? I
Yeah.
think our mics went out.
That property
They're
was
working
a
on them in the
lake
back
when it
as we're,
rained. So it comes all the way from the top of Brevard Avenue, and the way that I have steps, all the land that was dug away from my property, it's about that far down. I used to have property, dirt that came against my, all gone. It just gushes right down and into, and even the way the pavers were put in, they were supposed to go to the courtyard and into a retention pond, and the pavers face back into my alleyway. It's a nightmare.
if I may, we did, city staff did meet on site to look at some alternatives for the private property owners. Again, this is a private property related issue. It's drainage coming from one private property to another, flowing through several others. And there is a recommended change that would divert the flow further upstream to keep it on the new construction and go through their drainage system. Those changes haven't been implemented yet.
No.
There is some time before the major storm event. It is on private property. It's not something the city can go and undertake, but certainly we can lend our assistance if they have questions on what to do. We can do that.
Didn't we say we were going to get them? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I had
We,
the light
we
on.
did meet with the other property owners. It's still up to them to make the changes.
So have we brought them together?
Yes,
Property-
we did
okay.
meet on site.
Why wasn't I there? Was I not invited?
It wasn't that you weren't invited, it's that the actual changes aren't on your property.
But are we not communicating? I mean, you just said it's a group of buildings there. This is, my building's been there over 100 years, and it's new construction that has been approved by this city, which has caused the flooding in my business, which never has flooded in all the years I've been there, which is a good 37 years.
Hey, Donna, we're gonna have, Matt, if you can just, if you wanna step outside with her and talk with her so we can.
Yeah, that's fine.
kinda explain- Yeah, if you don't mind. Okay, thank you, Donna. Okay, up next we have, Astrid Morris. Or, did you want to be on a delegation, or you want to be under the stormwater?
Yes, as a resident,
The stormwater?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll call you back up then, yeah. Okay, that's, bring us to the end of our delegations. We have no more cards on the delegation. We're gonna move on to our reports real quick. Any reports from advisory boards? City administration, any, reports?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr.,
Okay.
yeah, Mr. Wheatgraf, any reports, or?
Yes, very briefly, the paving downtown has finally been completed. Striping will come in a week or two after the pavement sets a little bit.
Okay.
And then there is still a little paving left to do in the city on Lake Drive, actually.
Oh, okay.
That was milled and still needs to be paved. It'll be paved the second week of September is the schedule, pending what happens between now and then. Riverfront Park Fountain, that has been out of service since an event that was held recently. Staff has been working with the event promoter, and they are making repairs, ordering new pumps for the feature fountain. So that work is in progress.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Question. So for stormwater preparedness, I guess I put my light on.
Yeah, but I just want to recognize you before you.
Okay.
Yeah, but go ahead.
What are we doing in terms of stormwater preparedness? Do we have people out looking at the stormwater drains and just to give people confidence that we're preparing for the storm?
Yes, actually, when I drove through the village this morning, we had our jet vac cleaning out inlets. When the paving was done, some debris got brushed into the inlets, so they got those inlets clean. We're going around to the rest of the city, checking and make sure there's not vegetation on the grates and so forth. So yes, we are actively addressing stormwater as well as facilities, generators, and so forth.
And that was on the city's website as well.
Yeah, there's actually photos and videos of that occurring
Yeah.
Okay.
What's going on?
to communicate that.
Is that it, sir?
Just one more
Okay.
thing, Jolie Smith, the contractor has started work back, maybe very briefly in spite of the hurricane, but he will be finishing on his original schedule in May and final acceptance in June is the schedule. So we're on go with that. That's
Thank you,
all.
sir. Ms. Howell?
Good evening. I just wanted to briefly mention, we had a utility customer for Rockledge, a Rockledge customer who we bill their services for, came in at the last council meeting and was questioning the $2.99 convenience fee on the credit cards. And I just wanted to let you know, we reached out to him, explained to him, it's not a data entry fee, which is, I believe, what he felt. It was just the fee to enter it into the system. That $2.99 fee encompasses the interchange rates with the bank, which can be upwards of 3% of the total transaction. So it really, Visa MasterCard gets the bulk of that $2.99 fee. And so we explained it to him and told him the different ways he could pay his bill for free, including ACH, in the, when we reached out to him. So I just wanted to let you know that we did update him on that.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief Counsel.
I just want to remind everybody there, the storm is on its way. We'll be here. The police department will be here with you throughout the storm. If you need something from us, we'll be running normal operations until we just can't get out anymore. And then as soon as the event passes, we'll be back there. So if you need something, please don't hesitate to call us.
Thank you, sir. Chief.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as Fire Chief and Emergency Manager, we are meeting as a city staff policy group to address some of the issues that have been brought up, whether it's stormwater, how our utility is ready to go, what staffing we'll be putting up during the storm and after the storm, who we're going to sit and get ready. So when you have tropical force winds starting off, and you have to get people there and have them prepared so when the storm's over, we can immediately get out. So we're addressing that. Making sure we're going to get ready for that, and then deciding when we're going to actually open the EOC up and have it staffed 24 hours a day. So we'll be meeting again tomorrow afternoon at 1 after the next report to give us a better idea of when we can expect that storm changes all the time. When it gets to open water, it can change again, it can intensify, it can slow down. There's a lot of variables going on that we're still looking at and addressing every time those reports come out, and working with Brevard Emergency Management to make sure those kind of things are addressed. So we're working all of those. You'll be getting a policy report from the manager as we move forward. So we just want to let you know that we're out there. Fire department will be out there till it gets to a certain point where we can't respond. Once the winds die down, which for us is if they get over 50 miles an hour, we don't send a truck out. As soon as that sustained wind, 65 gusts, as soon as that dies down, we're right back out on the road. So we'll be looking at that through the storm and after the storm. If we do get a Category 2 or 3 storm here, we will have recovery like we haven't seen before. So it'll be a long-term recovery that we'll be going through. But we're looking at all of those right now, and we'll manage it depending on what the good Lord gives us with the storm. All right.
Appreciate it.
No report, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just a hurricane update from the Utilities Department. Under field operations, we've topped off vehicles, and we'll maintain those topped off every day up until the hurricane or storm comes. We are stockpiling our trucks. We are identifying our response teams, the stay-behind teams, as well as our return teams. In terms of laboratory, chemicals are on hand. Additional test kits and things that we need are already been ordered or already on site. At the plant, at the wastewater plant, we actually have been lowering Bracco for the last few days, and we'll continue to do that up until and through the storm to allow additional stormwater into that pond. Chemicals are on hand at the plant for discharge to the river, because we do need chemicals in order to comply with our permit limits. We have wind procedures, if you will, in place. That's where we kind of get with not only our own individual plants and sites that are under construction or partially under construction, make sure debris and things and construction items are not free to fly around. We're starting to clean that up, as well as to get the word out to our contractors of record who are out working on behalf of the city to close up their ditches, look at their low spots, and get their debris either off the site or under something extremely heavy like a backhoe or a piece of equipment. At the water plant, we fill every night on the tanks, and we will make sure that all tanks are full. All tanks are currently operational for portable water storage. We have our crews identified that'll be rotating into the weekend, and again, depending on the timing of what day that might hit, we'll play that by ear and get updates each day. Chemicals are in place, and I think there are already some scheduled deliveries coming tomorrow and Friday. And again, wind procedures on site there as well. We do have some construction projects active that need to be addressed, and they're doing that now. And engineering administration, they are setting up for their meal support and crews to work the kitchen for SFO, Public Works, and field operations. Other areas, generator maintenance, chainsaw maintenance, all going on for the remainder of the week. That's all I have, sir.
I got one question for you, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
We were, the deputy mayor and I was at an EOC training a few days ago, and I just wanted to know what determines when we shut the valves off going to the Barrier Islands? I mean, is it when we know that we're actually going to get hit or it's coming our way? When do we know when they get out and do that, or what determines that?
Actually, that's a discussion that typically happens in the EOC with myself, the city manager, and the fire chief, with, of course, input across the board. There really is no hard and fast rule.
Okay.
And if you think about the previous hurricanes, in previous hurricanes, even before I was the director, we actually didn't have the ability necessarily to isolate, or we didn't opt for that ability once we had it. And then the first year that we actually recommended, when I was the director for the first time during the first hurricane a number of years back, I opted to close those valves and nothing happened, and there was a big stir about closing those valves. The idea of closing the valves off is that it isolates the system into two pressure zones, one that ends at the mainland edge, and one that exists on the other side of the mainland, meaning Merritt Island and the beachside communities, as well as the port. And the idea is that if there is a major break, that the entire system isn't compromised. You only compromise a portion of it. And the logical thought being that having coastal communities, when you isolate at the mainland, we would always think that the barrier islands would get hurt first, and maybe they would be the ones that would have the largest, breaks and so on, and that it would sustain pressures on the mainland so that we could recover quicker to the beaches. That was the logical process that was in place. So then the following hurricane that came, we didn't close those valves because there was pressure received and different input. Yeah. And honestly, that storm was a little bit different as we remember. It really was kind of coming in a little more sleepy, then it got picked up quick. And at that point, once winds kind of get up and we can't do anything, we kind of played our hand as it was. And we had a major break on a subaqueous line that created a huge problem in the entire system. Yeah. So think about that decision. If we had closed those valves, everybody up to the mainland would have had their pressure just like they always had it. They would have no change. Everybody east of there on Merritt Island would have had the same experience, which had been complete loss of pressure, but we would have started a little quicker. We would have started at the mainland and started moving a little quicker towards the beach. I don't know that there's honestly a right or wrong answer regarding that question. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that: the strength of the storm, the direction of the storm, the wind speeds, the storms. I mean, there's a million things. And actually, I did do a briefing with the Brevard EOC about 2 or so years ago when they asked exactly that same question, and they asked me to produce some kind of a decision matrix related to that, and I kind of refused to do that. I gave them a lot of the same information that I just shared with you. There is no equation. If there was, I would definitely use it, but there really isn't.
Yeah, it was just one of the mayors from had some concerns. He said that they were closed like 11 hours prior or something like that, and
there's certain speed that they can go out. Remember, there's a utility trucks. They have a lot of equipment on, and it puts them at risk, the employees. And as Jack indicated, it was Matthew in October 16. It was tracking directly for us, and then it diverted after we made the decision. There's a certain, and it was, I think it was like 7:30, 7:45 at night. We made the decision, and we were able to, exercise those valves. And then Irma came across the Keys, was supposed to go up the West Coast. Well, then it diverted and went right up the middle of Florida.
Yep.
And so it just, we have to make the best decision that we can with the information that we have at the time preceding the point that we're not going to put the employees in danger. And then as well, taking into consideration the interests of the system as a whole.
If we do have to cut the system off to the island and the barrier islands, we do have that tank out at Cape Canaveral. Do we fill that so that there is at least a water supply?
Yeah, it's actually a Banana River tank, yes, and that's full. That will have water in it.
Okay.
Potable water. So
even if we shut off the valve, they still have access to water for a while.
They do, and they have access to pressure. So I don't like the term cut off. It's really creating two pressure zones where I can have independent levels of pressure that won't affect each other.
Okay.
That tank and the pumps on that side will continue. As long as there's water in that tank, I can keep pressure on that side.
Okay,
And
thank you.
generally, I mean, I know in the one storm, people were asked to evacuate. And, I just can't emphasize enough, and I think you hear it from all levels of government and emergency managers, when you're asked to evacuate, there's a reason why. And it's a life and death situation, and you're asked to evacuate. You can replace objects, but you can't replace, somebody that you love. And it's so, and in the one instance, there was an evacuation order, if I recall correctly, for the barrier islands. And so there was ideally, there were supposed to be limited individuals, people living over there at that time. So,
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Cox.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and we did a thorough evaluation of that main going out under 520, right?
Yes, ma'am, we
That was
did.
last
and
year.
528.
Yeah, we did every line that is underwater was surveyed after the storm, and every line that ended up getting uncovered because of the storm surge and the velocity of the water over the top, we went ahead and used the kind of those concrete riprap bags as a way to like armor plate the top of the exposed pipe so that it's not subject to that uncovering, and also the undermining that would have caused by exposing the top of that pipe. Because once it starts to expose under, eventually work its way down to the bottom, and then that's where it can become vulnerable. So all of that work was done and paid for by the utility, so we
And-
can be hardened and ready to go today.
And after the storm, if it hits, we will go back and we will redive and examine our pipes, our subaqueous pipes again.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
As part of the after action,
Yeah.
that was one of the things. So we said, it's expensive, it'll be a few $100,000 to do the diving because of all the safety procedures and different things that need to be done. But in the end, it was either 5 years or during, up to the next hurricane. So if we hadn't had a hurricane in 5 years, we'll dive it and check it out, make sure nothing's uncovered just from normal storms, which we don't really have a lot of information about what a smaller storm or a tropical storm or even just average day rainfall can do to those pipes. But since we will have some kind of a storm that'll come here, and that'll trigger that need, and we will, figure out the money situation and get the contractor to come out and recheck the pipes and make something new hasn't been exposed, or something new hasn't been weakened and we don't know about it yet, and that's what we want to avoid.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Tammy.
No report, sir.
Okay. Ms. Shealy? Okay. City Attorney? Thank you, sir. Mr. City.
I have a couple items before I get to matters related to the hurricane. Just to follow up, at the last meeting, I was at League of Cities, attended the research symposium on homelessness. I think the League of Cities conference was really excellent. But since then, we did hold a meeting with SCAT. I wasn't able here at last meeting to report that, to discuss transit shelters that are currently working with other cities and the opportunities to work with us as in terms of programming, that timing, and as well as kind of coming up with they have a design, cantilever type design that might be applicable in areas where we have constrained right away to get the pad for ADA and as well as a larger bus shelter. And then we discussed a lengthy discussion on the expanded service for Saturday and Sunday. Clearly it's a 14-month process because the budget is, just as we were presenting our budget, the county they started working on their budget long before us, and they will be adopting theirs. So notwithstanding whether or not the county is able to participate, we did discuss other potential partnership opportunities and ideas as to whether or not we could increase and expand the coverage on Saturday and as well as that Sunday between I think it's Route 4 for Cocoa and Rockledge, and we're going to continue those discussions. So you all received a notice or an email. The marijuana possession regulation and medicinal marijuana dispensaries workshop would be on Tuesday, October 29th, this year at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. And then I just to kind of try not to rehash everything. One, just to assure the public and council, the staff has been working hard, and you've heard from a number of the directors and things that we're doing. We started that earlier in the week, to prepare and doing some pre-planning efforts. As well, even preceding this, reviewing our Hurricane Irma after-action report. The deputy chief and the chief, walking us through updating our comprehensive emergency management plan. And for the first time, and I know some members of councils participated in the EOC exercise that we held, specifically related to our continuity of operations plan. So each department has a plan to how they are going to continue operations in the event of a significant event. But we have done EOC exercises previously. All of our staff, we're currently preparing the assignments for those who are going to, each of the departments will be meeting with their staff. So just to let you know, just before 5 p.m. this evening, Governor DeSantis did declare a state of emergency for 26 counties, including Brevard County. As of 5 p.m., the 5-day projection expects the storm to become a dangerous hurricane that will impact the Space Coast. So we shouldn't take it lightly. We know these projections. Last night, the projection was north of us. This morning, it was south, or just a little bit south, but still north of us, and then almost on top of us again. And so, obviously, it's a projection, but we need to take it seriously because, again, we've seen the devastation, not just locally, but think of Hurricane Michael that hit up in the Panhandle. And they're talking about a very, minimum Cat 3 type storm. It's going to be a major storm. So I mentioned staff has already begun preparations and pre-planning efforts. We will begin, as the chief indicated, we'll be meeting again tomorrow to discuss, have some discussions and when make some decisions. We have already asked the city clerk has prepared a draft resolution declaring the emergency in the city. We'll notify you of that meeting when we feel it's appropriate. We want to try to wait till we have enough information to determine, if all of a sudden that high comes down in another system and it starts going much lower, we want to pull the trigger too soon. But based on the update, we will make those decisions, and then we determine when to activate, as the chief said, our EOC and at what level and what staffing. I will tell you and tell the public, I do anticipate that I will be releasing and closing City Hall and city offices early Friday, because we need to let our employees go home and get prepared for the storm, because after the storm, those employees are going to come back and they're going to leave their home, and they may not make it back to their home for a while because they're going to be here working to help our community recover if we should face a significant event. Just a couple of notes. I know you probably hear this a lot, but we are, if an evacuation is declared that affects your area or your type of home, such as a mobile home, take it seriously. Please evacuate in a timely manner. It's not worth, it's not worth the cost of a life. If storm impacts Brevard County as currently projected, it could be a life or death situation. So please heed the warnings. You can stay in touch, both our Facebook, our social media, and I think probably beginning maybe tonight, we will transfer. If you go to the city's webpage, it'll automatically come up to our hurricane site on our website. So if you go to the city's webpage, www.cocofl.org, after probably this evening, it'll go straight to the city's website on the hurricane, so you can be kept informed. Also, the Brevard EOC puts out information as well. Please pay attention to it. Then lastly, we did receive word, Waste Management will not be doing any more pickups, so we are requesting residents, please do not trim or cut any trees and leave debris out by the curb. Because what's going to happen is that's going to become flying debris that may impact your neighbor or even your own house in your windows or something. So it's unnecessary, dangerous, windborne debris that's not needed. So we're asking that you please help us out with that. They have stopped. They've stopped. Greenways, yeah, they're gonna, yes.
Yeah, but there's a lot of debris out there that has been out there for weeks that hadn't been picked up yet, and I had some concerns about that because I could tell you there's some on West Point Drive and a number of other residents where there's a lot of debris, and I've been kind of monitoring it to see how long it's going to sit out there, and I could tell you that the ones on West Point Drive or West Point Drive has been out there for now over 3 weeks.
Okay. So I'll ask
Quite a bit.
the police chief tonight to have his patrol units, hit every street in the city and report any area where there is debris, and we'll see what we can do in advance.
Okay, thank you,
But-
sir. Mr. Assistant City Manager, do you have anything, or?
Well, I could report back. I had asked if all the parties wanted to come back in holding hands, but instead we're going to meet on site at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and there is some urgency to resolve the situation, and so I believe that will take place tomorrow. One other item for an update is we did promote, it may have been lost in the social media feed related to the potential hurricane, but the waterfront stakeholder site is open. It's under the community improvement section on the website, and there is a stakeholder form for those that wish to participate and receive updates on projects. Go ahead and fill out that form, and we'll maintain that database and issue the updates as we receive them related to the waterfront. So,
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Councilman Bover.
Yes, I have a few things. We had a successful town hall meeting at District 3 on last Wednesday. It was well attended. Also, the mayor and we had at the town hall meeting Deputy Mayor Warner, Mayor Williams, and myself were there. And also the Crime Watch meeting at Coventry, the mayor and myself attended that one. And then we attended, the mayor and I attended a ceremony at the what was the name of that church?
St. John's.
St. John, okay, thank you. And we received the award for community service. So we were there for 3 hours on Sunday, so we received an honor for that. And also Ed, hello, Ed? On 524, the exit southbound, when you're coming off, can they put a sign up there that do not block the intersection? These people are coming off the exit to make a left-hand turn. Then the fire truck's trying to get by, but you can't go when there's a 30-foot trailer or a 40-foot tractor trailer in the middle of the road. So in other words, when they're coming off the exit, they can't make the turn, they're blocking the entrance, the exit. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
DOT would do that.
yes, we'll talk to DOT.
If they could put a sign, don't block, I don't know if that would do any good or not.
Yes, we will talk to DOT and see
I
if that's a
appreciate it very much,
possibility.
because I noticed
Right.
that tonight when on my way over here, that happened, and I said, weird, so I went back around and there's no sign that says don't block the intersection.
Yes, we will
Thank
ask
you.
them to look at that.
Thank you, Ed, thank you. And also, they got the stair climb September 7th, right, chief?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Saturday, I believe it's the 7th.
Right,
Yep.
the stair climb.
6 p.m. at Cocoa High School. Yep. To commemorate 9/11 and the lives that were lost there.
Right, yeah. And that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor Warner.
You just, I'm going to pick on Mr. Woodruff, too. I had a question today, Ed, and I was pretty sure I knew the answer, but I wanted to check and make sure. Staff was out today turning on sprinklers in some of our green spaces where, we maintain and have sprinklers. I'm assuming they're doing that to reduce the water levels in the reuse system. But I had somebody say, we've had all this rain, why are they coming out and turning on the sprinklers when we know we have a hurricane coming? So, were we turning on the sprinklers on the city properties to get rid of water, or just because we thought it
No,
needed?
typically, we don't do it just to get rid of water. We do it to test the system, make sure it's working, especially in areas that we're planting, but,
No, this was down in Circle Park, but it ran all afternoon, so it wasn't just like turning it on and making sure they were working, it was left running, so.
you know,
I mean, it
Circle Park, that may be the county running that also.
No, this is ours. It was our
Oh.
guys turning it on.
Right, well, we will check into that.
Okay. Yeah, one of the neighbors said, why are they sprinkling? I
Make the
turned my
grass grow.
sprinklers off, yeah. Okay, I just wanted to see if you had any idea why they were doing that. And also, I'd just like to remind everybody that a lot of information gets put out when we're getting ready for a hurricane, and there's plenty of places to get it from the city, from the EOC. Please pay attention and watch what's going on and follow the evacuation orders. I know I've had people say to me, well, I don't evacuate, and, you know, it's no big deal, you know, I'm not hurting anybody by not evacuating, but I am here to tell you, if you are asked to evacuate and you don't, and our police officers and our firefighters have to come and rescue you, you're risking their lives as well as your own. You care about your firefighters and you care about your police officers, and you're told to evacuate, please evacuate. I know it's hard. It's especially hard if you live on a fixed income. Nobody has the money to buy the gas and evacuate, just like nobody has the money to stock up on supplies when a storm falls right at the end of the month before everybody's Social Security check comes in. But we do have resources in this community to help. We have churches that'll help, and we have the sharing center. Take advantage of those resources if you need the help. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilman Doyle.
Just a few things. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I think we know with a potential hurricane coming ahead, and you know everybody want to be a part of the city council meeting is a beautiful thing. Mr. Wheatgrove, do we have access to sandbags for citizens? Because my phone has been blowing up all day today. Asking that question.
Yes, the city's policy in the past has been BYOBS, bring your own bag and shovel. We have areas on our website where we're putting sand in the neighborhoods, and residents are encouraged to get their own sandbags and fill them, have your neighbors.
And those locations are online?
Yes, I believe they are.
Okay, so that's why the sand was on Railroad.
Yes, that was
Okay,
one of the
all right.
locations, Plaza Parkway, I know at
Gotcha.
our office, and I think there's some out by Cocoa North or Coventry. So we
Okay.
do have several locations, and, you know, Travis had bags. I'm sure some of the other stores have bags, so they're a popular item.
Okay.
This one would be the-
Good. I know Samantha was saying something. Thank you. I know I had a different kind of 5-6 days. I had a new baby. Well, my wife had a baby. So, yeah. So if I look kind of sleepy, just bear with me. I had Mr. City Manager. I had a conversation with Samaya Singleton the last few days through email about potentially starting a program for minority and women-owned businesses within the city of Cocoa. I do know that there are no municipalities in Brevard County that has any initiative or any incentives for minority or women-owned businesses. So I want Cocoa to be one of the first ones in Brevard to do so. There are several cities in Florida, like Pensacola, counties like Hillsborough, that have this a program. The program could consist of business startup, maybe purchase on capital equipment, capital improvements, or marketing support. So I would like for you allow her to research this for us, and maybe something we can bring to the table soon.
Yes, sir. I do believe Nancy, we can follow up on it. We do have funds in our small business assistance program, and that might be modified to provide, some preference to minority and women business enterprises. And I'm familiar with other programs. When I worked at Orlando, we had one as well, and they even had actually a loan fund. And actually, at League of Cities, I spoke with a vendor that might be able to help set something up to that effect.
Okay. All right, thank you. The final thing for me is maybe the end of 2019, early 2020, with the help of League of Cities, I would like to implement a youth council. I think someone that's on council as well said this in maybe the last few months. But I think a youth council for me will empower young people to be excited about local government. Right now, as I'm 39 years old, when I turn around and look behind me, now I gotta wonder who's next. Who's the next person that's going to be on council or be the next mayor or be city manager, whatever the case may be. I think we have the obligation to empower young people to do so. I know I'm putting a lot on the table, but I think that's something that we need to look to. I think it will be good for our community as well to bridge the gap with the relationship. So,
Yes, sir. I think beginning in November, we're looking to kick off the Citizens Academy. And then after we get that up and running, and it's, then we'll look to expand to develop the youth council. That's it's on our plans. Just want to do one at a time rather than focus on trying to handle both at the time with the resources that we have.
Okay, thank you. And again, I'd like to just everybody be safe during this hurricane or potential hurricane. If I could do anything to help, I have a shovel and I will have some bags if y'all need help from me. I'm serious about that. So if you need any help from me at your house or whatever the case may be, my number's on the website and I'll be willing to help. So I like getting my hands dirty. So thank you. Yeah, I might do that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Cox.
Just to say, just an update again, thank you for everyone's support for the Cocoa Tigers Chorus, who were invited, one of two high schools, invited to perform at Carnegie Hall for the 9/11 commemoration. I was out last week, but saw something on the email. They now have 81,500 and some. I mean, they are very, very close to the $85,000 goal. So we've done it. So it's just a little bit more. Second thing, and I just want to say I'm glad we're talking stormwater tonight. I think it's the right time. Looking forward to that.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm gonna try to be very quick here. It's been busy few weeks. We had the community outreach with Coventry and Lost Lakes. The city manager and myself and others, other mayors throughout the county met with Senator Wright. Had some really good conversations up at Eastern Florida campus in Titusville. A big thank you to St. John's Church for the community award ceremony. It was really nice. Really enjoyed myself and the Councilman Bover. A big thank you to Public Works or whoever dealt with the flooding issues at the daycare there on Peachtree Street. They're very happy about that, and they really appreciate the city addressing that. A thank you to the county for resurfacing Lake Drive, and as well as did we do that?
We're doing that.
Oh, okay. We did that from Lake Drive all the way to.
We're doing the portion in the city.
Okay, yeah. This was the county portion. I guess they took care of their portion. It looks really nice over there. And then also, I don't know if anyone noticed, but they picked up at the National Guard Armory, the barricades are gone, which is really nice. They've been there for years, and I know that's a big improvement. And as well as just our law enforcement and fire department. There's a new restaurant, Gators Dockside in the port, 50% off if you're in uniform. They told me to make sure I mentioned that, so. But with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and, we can go ahead and move on. That's enough. And a big thank you to SCAT. We had a little tour with SCAT today, so. But, so, yeah, okay. So with that being said, we're gonna move on to our consent agenda. What are the wishes of the council? We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner.
Second.
Second from Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're gonna move on to public hearing. We have none, seeing none. We're gonna move on to council business. First item up, administrative services.
Yes, sir. This is to consider the appointment of one of the following applicants as a member of the Cocoa Community Redevelopment Agency through April 2020. Nancy Elliott, Jan Etz, James McCarthy, Denise Porter, or Candace Rogers. And you've all been provided a copy of each application. Not sure if Anthony would like to discuss a process where y'all.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The process is, set forth in the city council rules of procedure. Each council person has the opportunity to nominate, one of the candidates or a different candidate of your choice if they submit an application. And once the nominations have been presented, the mayor can close nominations, and then the city council will consider the nominations and the council has to make an appointment of one of the nominees by majority vote. And typically, the nominees, once they're all gathered, are considered in alphabetical order.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Goins.
I'll be the first one to say I really don't like the way we do this. I think it's very difficult to select one person when you have so many qualified candidates. Maybe in the future we may look into, like we did with the volunteer situation where we selected, or volunteer of the year where we did like an email style vote to kind of narrow it down, because we could possibly be here for 2 hours having a conversation about who is the right person for this situation.
I don't think the folks from the Stormwater would appreciate for that, so. Councilwoman Costs.
Well, do we have cards, people that were gonna speak?
No, not under this item. Well, we have one,
Yeah, we do.
but I will let that person speak.
Okay, well, let me wait until,
Nancy Elliott filled out a card.
Yeah, it was Nancy Elliott. But, Deputy Mayor Warner.
I agree with Councilman Goins. It's very difficult, but fortunately for us, we do not have a bad candidate. We cannot lose tonight, let's put it that way. But I am going to voice a couple of opinions here. Everybody that's applied brings something absolutely fabulous and wonderful to the table. Somebody brings experience, somebody else brings passion and talent, somebody else brings years and years of knowledge. Everybody has a great thing to offer. This was a very difficult decision for me because I consider the majority of these people friends. One of them is a very good friend, and I will be happy no matter who we pick. However, and I'm going to look right at these two people sitting in the front row because they're both friends of mine and they both bring something great to the table. And I know how badly they both want to serve. And my choice would be one of the two of them. I would prefer, and this is difficult to say, Ms. Etz for one reason and one reason only, and that is that she is a consistent business owner in this village for over 30 years. She has also been very involved in Cocoa Main Street and Historic Cocoa Village Association, As a matter of fact, it was Mrs. Etz that brought Cocoa Main Street to Cocoa. She worked, she went to Tallahassee, she fought for it. So I know that her 30-plus year historic knowledge of the village is vital. However, former Councilman McCarthy sat up here and helped to make decisions and sat on the RDA for years and helped make decisions. And so, like I said, I can vote for any one of the people who have applied, but one of those two would be my choice. So that being said, I am going to nominate, because I'm sure somebody's going to nominate Jim McCarthy. I'm going to nominate Janet.
Okay. Let me have Miss. I'm gonna go ahead and let Miss Elliott come on up since she has a card in here real quick.
I guess we should ask if the rest of them want to.
Yeah, I didn't know if the rest of them. Well, I want to see.
Nancy Elliott, 3406 Indian River Drive, Cocoa, Florida. This has been a vacancy since April. The parameters have been defined. The job has been advertised. The process has been observed. Please fill the seat tonight. This poor board has been sitting with one vacancy and sometimes two, and it's difficult to represent a broad base of people when you don't have the seats that represent them filled. Now, I'd also like to make a case for having this seat represent, this vacancy this time, represent the businesses in the village. They are the people who are downtown every day. They are the pulse of this village. They see with vision, but they also see the ramifications of the work that's being done, how it benefits them, how it obstructs. They're trying to make a living, and everything that the CRA does ultimately impacts that. So if you all would see your way clear to making this a representative of the daily person in the village, I think that you would be well served. They would be well served. It would be a vote of confidence to these people who keep the village alive, and I appreciate you all taking care of business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other? Councilwoman Cost.
Yeah, I wanted to make a nomination as well, and as everyone has said, we have great candidates. I really think Nancy Elliott stands out as creator of Art Beats, her involvement in Main Street. I've come to know her as somebody that is just this great creative thinking and is willing to think out of the box and with some vision. So I would nominate Nancy Elliott.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Yes. You know, I've known them all, and, you know, this is really a heart-wrenching decision to make. You know, the old saying, damn if you do and damn if you don't. Well, this is one of those situations. And thank God you don't have darts, because one of us would be plucked in the middle of the head. And I just don't know what to say, you know, because I've known them all. I've served with Jim McCarthy on the city council. I've known Gene. I've known Mrs. Elliott for a long time. And, who else is on here? Candace Rogers. And the only one I really don't know is Denise Porter. But I'm sure they're all very well qualified. And I just don't know. You know?
Draw straws.
I don't know how we can solve this problem when we have 5 people.
Right now, we have two nominees, and so we're gonna, if we don't get any more nominees, then we'll be voting on these two. So,
Okay.
Unless you got someone different that you want to throw out there.
If I nominate someone else, then we're gonna have three, and then it's gonna be, we're gonna be here till midnight, so I'm just gonna pass. I think I'll go with whatever the majority goes with.
Councilman Goins.
I nominate Mr. McCarthy for several reasons. I think he has a history in cocoa. I think, smart guy, businessman. Well, she may be smart sometimes. And a property owner. Yes, sir, Mr. Greenwood. So that's my nomination.
Okay, we got 3 nominations here.
In alphabetical order.
That's all the nominations, Mayor. Close nominations.
Okay, is there any more nominations? If not, then I'll go ahead and close it at this time. So it's gonna be Jan McCarthy and then Nancy Elliott. Wow. Okay, Anthony, what am I gonna do? Just basically just call the name out and then.
If you want to continue discussion, the council can certainly do that regarding the nominees. If there isn't any discussion, then starting with the first name, you can call for a motion.
Okay.
And a second. If a motion and second is provided, then there'll be a vote on that candidate. If you don't get a motion and a second, then you go to the second candidate. If the vote fails on the first candidate, then you would go to the second candidate until the council, by majority vote, appoints someone to serve on the CRA, and if the council cannot appoint someone tonight, then the matter would be deferred to the next council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, you should make him conduct these.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
This is his idea, make him do it.
It's Robert's rules.
Well, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm really up in the air because I've known Jan for a lot of years, and Jim probably just as many. We worked on the council together and the CRA, and then Nancy. It's like, wow. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and well, we got McCarthy.
Who do we start with? That we do it alphabetically?
First
I mean, I'm sorry, Janet.
Elliot. Elliot would be first.
Elliot is first.
Well, I was going by the first name, so. I'm sorry.
First one that was nominated would be,
No, we go by alphabetical.
alphabetical order.
Okay, well,
You wanna go with the last name? I guess it doesn't matter, the first name. We'll go with the first name. Janet. Get a motion and a second? or-
I'll make a motion for Janet.
We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner. And, God. We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner, and I'll second that one with Janet. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those two. And then we, next we have up Jim McCarthy.
clarify, so the motion and the second is just to recognize that nomination,
Yeah.
and then we vote.
Yeah, and then we're, okay, yes, that's right, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, we got up Jim McCarthy.
Make a motion for Jan McCarthy nomination.
second.
We got a motion from Councilman Goin, a second from Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying Okay. And then we got up next, Nancy Elliott.
And I make that motion.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Costs.
Yes, he can.
Yeah,
Yes, he can.
He can second every single one of them if he wants
We
to.
got a second from Councilman Goen. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Anthony, you might ought to do this.
Flip a coin.
Yeah. I think we'd be better served if you handle this, Mr. City Attorney, so we can get going here.
Well, I think you followed the procedure.
Yeah.
You just
Good.
you did a good job. You don't have three votes at this time. So, I mean, you could defer it to the next meeting unless you want to try to do one more ballot. It's up to the council.
I'd personally like to defer this to the next meeting because I haven't even had a chance to even read all the applicants, but I know that, you know, we want to move on and get this done, but I'm Councilman Goen, I see your light on. I didn't know if you,
Well, we do have, our next meeting is before our next CRA meeting, isn't it? Or is it same?
No,
not.
it's the same.
it's the same day, yeah.
Okay, same day.
Yeah.
Well, can I suggest that we do this? How about we go ahead and move on with our agenda and do this at the end of the meeting so that the people that are here for other purposes, and then
Yeah,
we can take care of business, and these people who are here to talk about stormwater can move on. And then let's try it again at the end of the meeting. We'll go try one more vote before we push it on to a next meeting.
And, I mean, maybe we should have each of the nominees speak on their own behalf.
How does that sound
If
to
only
you,
for a
Mr.
few
City?
minutes.
I make a motion to table this item to the end of the meeting,
Well,
to the
no,
end of the meeting, not,
table it, but just move it, or,
I'm all right.
Well, motion to table
Okay.
till the end of the meeting.
okay.
End of the meeting.
We got a motion from Councilman Goins, second from
I'll second it.
Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay.
Ah.
We're just gonna,
People would-
we're gonna address this at the,
Yeah.
well, we just wanna move on. We don't wanna get stuck on it, because we got a lot of folks here for the stormwater
We
issue.
could sit here for an hour doing this. We
Yeah.
just don't want to keep everybody here
Yeah.
that's here to talk about other issues.
We're gonna vote on it at the last item on the council meeting.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started here.
Let's do that.
But anyway, we got item number 2, which, Mr. City Manager, City Attorney? Do you need,
Item number 2.
approve resolution?
Yeah, that does not.
No, that don't require
That
you.
doesn't need to be read.
Okay, City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This item is, you're being requested to approve Resolution 2019-074, which endorses the Central Florida Regional Resilience Collaborative, providing for the City of Cocoa support and participation in the initiative. You may recall the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council had previously developed a program to focus on regional disaster resiliency. Back in March, they held several meetings. This council adopted a resolution supporting that in February of 19, approving the East Central Florida Regional Resiliency Action Plan and committing to support and work towards the implementation of relevant action and objectives over the next 5 years. Subsequently, one of those action items was for the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council was to come together and put together a structure and a framework for the collaborative, and they have done that. And so they're asking the local governments within the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council area to enter into MOU, or in this case, we're adopting a resolution in support of that, which would require, that we will participate, we support and will participate working toward achieving the regional cooperation in terms of helping to create that productive connectivity, committing staff resources and expertise, within budget constraints to participate with other members to facilitate and advance the Regional Resilience Collaborative, as well as each member should work collaboratively to develop a regional resilient action plan that will identify specific initiatives with supportive and actionable data, the legislative strategy that we would work with to align our individual decisions and policies in service of a shared legislative regional resiliency strategy developed by the Regional Resilience Collaborative, community involvement, each member working collaboratively to recognize and engage the regional community, involving a diverse stakeholder representation in developing policies and recommendations for implementation, and then also participating in an annual summit to share knowledge, resources, and progress with regards to the collaboration. I should add, there is attached, there is an overview of the structure they are proposing. Clearly, it's, if you recall, the City of Cocoa, through a grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and Florida's Coastal Management Program and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, we contracted, we got a grant with them, we contracted with East Central Florida Regional Planning Council to engage our community and develop our community's resilience plan. The plan is in a final draft form and will be finalized before, concurrently with the city's year or evaluation appraisal-based comprehensive plan amendments, because it addresses issues of policies and objectives related to some of the legislation mandates from 2015 regarding peril of flood that are mandated. So we are doing that, and we also, I mentioned previously that we did, council already supported the effort in terms of early on, and so we are requesting that you approve Resolution 2019-074, endorsing the East Central Florida Regional Resilience Collaborative, providing for the City of Cocoa support and participation in the initiative.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I like.
Councilwoman Cost.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, I feel like it's a no-brainer because we definitely need a collaborative approach to resilience. But just for my information, it took a long time because I brought this forward several months ago, and since then, several other municipalities have passed the resolution. Why does it take so long to get the resolution actually to council? Because that was like May, wasn't it, when I first brought it?
Well, we had received it in May also, but we had, one, there were some other items. Two, I needed to, I had some conversation with Tara because the way they provided it, the MOU they provided was with their signature, not ours, wasn't in our resolution format, so we worked on getting that done. And then also I needed to talk to her because in the resolution, you will see it's slightly different in a couple of respects in terms of some of the language. And then there's also, what I'll call the reservation clause or section where the City of Cocoa City Council reserves the right to withdraw or modify its commitment and or participation as may be deemed appropriate by the City Council in furtherance of the City of Cocoa. And I needed to have a conversation with Tara and just make sure that that was appropriate.
Okay, well, Titusville, I think Satellite Beach and
So
West
I think
Melbourne
there's
have all
like 4 in the
passed it now.
county that
Yeah.
adopted it so far.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Maybe 5.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Cost, a second from Councilman Goin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're gonna move on to city business. Item number 1 was tabled. Number 2, approve the preliminary assessment resolution for fire protection for fiscal year 2020. Finance Director.
Yes. So this is the preliminary assessment resolution for the 2019 fire protection services, which City Council must adopt the fire assessment rate for the upcoming hearing, and then the final fire assessment hearing is September 11.
We got a motion from Councilman Bover, a second from Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes unanimously. Opposed? Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 3, which is approve a budget resolution amending the FY 2019 budget to transfer funds for purchase of 2 each 20-ton train condensing unit. Public Works Director.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we are requesting approval of this budget resolution. The previous transfers have exceeded the city manager's allowable. So this is coming to council. We are requesting to purchase 2 condenser units for the top of this building, one for the second floor and one for the third floor. They're 10 years old. They looked at replacing the compressors, and the coils and other things are starting to deteriorate. So it's best just to put a new heart in the system. So
Thank you, sir. What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner, a second from Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we can move on to item number 4, Finance Director.
actually, this is Public Works Director. This is for requesting council to adopt the Mead and Hunt 10-year stormwater work plan utilizing the city's capital improvement program, including improvement cost estimates as well as ranking and prioritization of water quality and flood projects. As council's aware, we've been doing a lot of discussion on stormwater. The city has had a stormwater utility since 1992. That was done to align with the city's comp plan at the time to address water quality and flooding concerns. The study was done in 91. Ordinance 2-92 actually adopted the city stormwater utility system based on a user fee system. The general basis for that fee that we have now is impervious area. There's also a secondary rate for unimproved property. Most of the funding does come from the impervious area. The impervious area, I would like to point out, in the existing 92 ordinance is defined as a number of square feet of hard surface areas which either prevent or retard the entry of water into the soil mantle as it entered under natural conditions as undisturbed property, and/or causes water to run off the surface in greater quantities or at an increased rate of flow that was present under natural conditions as undisturbed property, including but not limited to roofs, roof extensions, patios, porches, driveways, sidewalks, pavement, and athletic courts. The current rate at this time is $7 per SFU, which is defined as 2,166 square feet of impervious area. Currently, we do allow a 20% credit for properties that have constructed in accordance with the St. Johns River Water Management District and have a operating, that it's certification that it's operating in accordance with their original design. Right now, the system generates about $1.5 million per year. $1.1 million of that is used to operate and maintain the system, which leaves about $400,000 for capital projects. Right now, projects are funded as pay-as-you-go, so the system, utility stormwater system has no debt. The way we're doing it now, $400,000 a year and no debt does not provide funding for long-term capital improvement projects. With the recent Save Our Indian River Lagoon initiative and other projects by city staff that we identified, $400,000 isn't enough to get this work done. So we had the services of Mead and Hunt to put together a long-term 10-year work program. We looked at a total of 29 water quality projects, 20 flood mitigation projects, as well as several major equipment purchases such as street sweepers. Not all the projects are in the plan. They were prioritized based on cost benefit, number of people benefited, number of properties benefited, multiple benefits, including public education, And out of the 29 water quality projects, 6 are chosen to be part of the 10-year work plan. This includes both gray and green infrastructure for a total of $11.47 million. Of the 20 flood mitigation projects evaluated, 14 were chosen to be part of the plan at a total value of $6.4 million. Of course, those are all gray infrastructure, pipes, and so forth. Major equipment also accounted for $1 million, with a total project cost of $18.88 million. And we're requesting council to approve that plan, and then we will move forward to the next agenda item to decide how we're going to fund those projects. So I'll turn it back to council if you have questions.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Cost.
Thank you. I think we're making a shift with this plan, as we've discussed before in the workshops, where, we have invested in fire, we've invested in our police department. It's time to invest in our stormwater. And so I'm really happy to see the plan overall. I was on vacation, but I haven't been studying it, and I'm wondering where the adaptability is in the plan, because I was really concerned that we make wise, sustainable decisions, sustainable for our budget, of course, as well as for our city, but we have the comprehensive system model, which it seems like once we have that comprehensive system model, which basically kind of looks at your macro and your micro watersheds and where water is flowing and where we need to focus, we have that. We have the other thing that we're looking at in this budget is the master park plan, which I see as a part of our stormwater. We have the opportunity there to identify parks that, not only serve as community assets for recreation, but for stormwater collection as well. So do we have adaptability in this plan? Can we look at, like, once we get that, or once we go through this storm, we see a major weakness?
Yeah.
Do we have the, okay.
Yes, ma'am. If you look on page 152, on the implementation schedule, specifically Section A, it provides that, the schedules for the implementation of flood mitigation water quality project described above serve as suggestions for the order in which the city should consider. The actual timeline of implementation will vary as the city may need to make amendments to the order based on the input from, so in other words, it's no different essentially when the city made the shift many years ago with regard to the utility system. With regard to the utility system to evaluate, while they have a master plan and they have all their projects identified, each year they look at and they analyze based on the needs of the system, what changing conditions may happen, or what may happen throughout that year that might require adjustment, and what may rise to what was maybe, we'll just say it was priority 4, all of a sudden next year because something happened, it becomes a priority 1. So this does provide the opportunity. And then also keep in mind, each year, the city council through the budget process approves the CIP that funds that year. They'll be scheduled over the 10-year period consistent with this, but there is the ability in the budget process if, staff and their council, say, well, we did this project, but I think this one is more meritorious, and giving staff the opportunity to evaluate any concerns and provide their opinion, but you could make those adjustments. Would you agree with that, Ed?
Yes, this is just a plan, and it is evaluated every year. And actually, through doing the system model, we may identify different projects that are more cost-effective. So, yes, it's a living plan. It'll be changing plan.
Okay, what is the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion from Councilwoman Cost, second from Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Opposed? So we can move on to item number.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next item, which is item number 5, accept Stantec Consultant Services, Inc., Stormwater Assessment Study Final Report.
Yes, so we have with us tonight, or this evening, Stantec Consulting. Kyle Stevens has a presentation on the final report.
Perfect. Good evening, council members and the mayor. My name is Kyle Stevens with Stantec Consulting. I was last in front of you on May 14th to give you an interim update on the stormwater rate study that we've been conducting for the city. This evening, I'd like to go over the final recommendations of the study. There are several core elements of the stormwater study that we've been conducting for the city. The first of which I will be going through is the revenue sufficiency part of the analysis, and that effectively is how much money does it take to run your system, and we projected for 10 years the cost requirements. The next portion of the study was with regards to the method of collection. You currently have a stormwater fee in place, and it is collected on the utility bill, but we evaluated your options with regards to that. The next part of the analysis was the revenue recovery basis. So what units will we be measuring on particular parcels in order to assess those parcels for stormwater services? And then the last portion of the analysis is the actual structure of the fee or of assessment that will be levied. And so I'll jump right into it. The first part of the analysis, the revenue sufficiency analysis, some quick background. The stormwater system as it currently stands generates roughly $1.5 million to cover operations and maintenance in what we would categorize as minor capital. As Ed mentioned, there's not much money left over after operations currently. Additional revenue is needed to reduce flooding and comply with water quality regulations. Stantec has created a cash flow model which looks at forecasting the next 10 years of this particular utility fund and the various cost dynamics contained within it. The key assumptions that were put into the model this year were keeping existing operations and maintenance, maintaining those on a go-forward basis. And then as the item was just discussed with regards to Mead and Hunt, the model integrated the capital requirements that were identified in that plan and looked at the opportunities to fund those. Some of the notable projects that were included within the analysis: Riverfront Park Lagoon, Diamond Square Pond, and a new 72-inch outfall. And so what I have up on the next screen, this is the dashboard of the financial model. And what we have done is created a status quo scenario. And so currently in place, you have been increasing stormwater rates by 25 cents a year. That gives you additional revenue of roughly 3.5% declines over time as the rate goes up. And what we can see from that, if you were to continue to do that status quo, the reserve balances in the operating fund in the left-hand corner work much like your own personal bank account. If the revenues are lower than the expenditures going out, we need to pull on the bank account to fund that. The graphic that we're showing right there is an unsustainable use of reserve balances. So without additional revenue enhancements, we would project by 2022 this fund would be out of cash. And that's being driven fundamentally by the updated capital plan that Mead and Hunt and the city engineers developed. And that is what we refer to as a structural deficit. So the two lines in the middle there show that orange line, which is cash out, above the black line, which is the cash coming into the fund for an extended period of time. The next slide here is a calculated plan that looks like what the revenue adjustments would need to be to create a sustainable plan for this utility fund. What we have done is created a plan by which the revenues are realigned to meet the needs of the capital plan that has been entered into this model. That would require 3 years of 9% increases. And then once those revenues are fundamentally realigned, the rate increases could drop back down to inflationary levels for the rest of the projection period, which we put in at 3% per annum. And what that allows you to do is maintain your reserve balances, so you can now see those are at the black or target minimum level throughout the projection period. It allows us for sustainable cash flow. The black line, the cash in, and the orange line are relatively on top of each other in this scenario. And one of the key elements of the revenue sufficiency study came up is the issuance of debt in order to support the capital plan. So historically, your utility fund has cash funded all of the capital projects, but given the magnitude of the projects that were identified, the financial plan was developed to include some borrowing in there to allow you to leverage dollars and put those projects in the ground faster. With regards to the collection method, you have two choices as a municipality. You currently bill stormwater on the utility bill, so it is aligned with the water and sewer, if you will, on a monthly bill that goes out to your customers that have a utility account that's active. Additionally, many communities will avail themselves of using the non-ad valorem assessment. So this is where the stormwater bill goes on the annual tax assessment to individual parcels within the city. I've put together a few pros and cons to just walk us through the discussion and our thought process with regards to those. With regards to utility billing, it is easier to change the fee. So as a council, you can decide at any point in time that you would like to update that fee, and you can make a change in a relatively quick time period. But with regards to the non-ad valorem assessment, I think there are some considerable benefits to be considered. So many times there's greater accuracy because we don't have to map parcels to utility accounts. Rather, we can bill parcels directly. Typically a higher collection rate. So if utility accounts go inactive, we can't necessarily bill those, but if we do it on a non-ad valorem, we can. It's a lower staff administrative cost. It's also easier to update with the tax roll from Brevard County. And then it would be property owners paying the bill versus renters paying the bill in the cases of properties with renters on them. With regards to the cons, from utility billing, it can be difficult to manage and update over extended periods of time. Again, thinking about that relationship between underlying parcels and then utility bills. So there's a layer of complexity added in there. It can be collection issues and write-offs. Non-active accounts are a big issue in your particular city, and the fact that when they're turned off, they're not paying stormwater fees. Reduced revenue and subsidization by other users as well. With regards to the non-ad valorem assessment, there is a strict timeline as we're starting that process right now with this meeting that you have to follow in order to get the assessment on the tax roll each fiscal year in October. Also public notice requirements and some added costs associated with the tax collector. It is our recommendation as part of the study that the city avail themselves of the non-ad valorem assessment. I have additionally put together here a slide that looks at peer communities and how you would compare given the method of collection. On the left-hand side of the chart, denoted by an X, are the communities that avail themselves of an annual assessment on the tax roll. There are 13 of those. And on the utility bill, there are 12 of those. Of one particular note, COCO does a lot of the billing for the communities that you see on the utility bill side of the equation. And it's been our experience in the industry that the current trend is communities moving from the utility billing side of the house over to an annual assessment to recognize some of those benefits that we just mentioned. So it would be our recommendation, again, to move to that ad valorem side to bill. Some thoughts on the current fee that's in place. So the fee was established in 1992. It hasn't been materially changed in structure since then. The level of the fee has been updated to collect more revenue, but the underlying units or structure haven't been updated. It is, as was mentioned, a less common approach in the industry. So it's including fundamentally two billing units. You're looking for non-residential parcels, so the larger parcels in your community, you're looking at how much impervious area they have. So that's the hard surfaces that water can't penetrate. But you also have a part of the fee that looks at the gross area of the parcel or the pervious side of the equation as well and allocate some cost to that. And so that is not as common in the industry, and it also requires additional administration because you're fundamentally managing two billing units. It also potentially penalizes natural land, so if a land has not been developed, you're still charging that for the pervious area that's there. On the residential side of the equation, there's a dwelling unit basis in place, and so effectively you have a flat fee for residential units. And so every house is treated the same if it's a single dwelling unit. On parcels with multiple dwelling units, you're assigning 1 unit of stormwater fees for each dwelling unit on that parcel. This can be very inequitable, especially when we talk about parcels that develop in a vertical manner where dwelling units are stacked one on top of each other, because fundamentally that impervious footprint doesn't change with those additional dwelling units, but the fee currently scales with that. And so we'll look at that in a second. So the takeaway as we evaluated your rates and moved into the analysis side of the equation was there's an opportunity here to provide sufficient revenues for an environmentally and financially sustainable stormwater program. And I think there's also a number of opportunities to improve the method of revenue collection. And so with this next section, what I'd like to go into is the actual fee structure and selecting the basis. With regards to stormwater services, there are a number of bases employed to measure the usage of the system. So the first one I've highlighted up here, some communities will actually use the taxable value, and they'll recover the revenue requirement for stormwater based on the value of a property. And there's not a very good nexus between the use of the system to that. If we go down the list, dwelling units is another one that will come up that systems will use in order to recover the revenue for the stormwater system, as well as the gross area of the parcel, so just the overall size of your parcel, irregardless of if it's been developed or not. Additionally, pervious area, as your current feed does, and then impervious area. And impervious area in the industry is considered the gold standard. Many hydrological studies will look at impervious area as the single largest factor on a parcel for its stormwater generation or contribution to your system. So it's considered the best measurement of how a parcel impacts your system. It's our recommendation that you move to a pure impervious basis for the purpose of this fee. Impervious area measurement. So one part of the analysis was to update the actual measurement of the impervious area to bring it to current figures. Impervious area, again, is defined as hard surfaces which either prevent or retard the entry of water into the soil. What we went through as part of the analysis was to digitalize impervious area. So we use geographical information systems to use remote sensing or aerials that were provided to us from Brevard County in 2018 to look at every single parcel and make a determination of how much impervious surface is on that parcel. Each parcel in that database has a unique footprint assigned to it, and at the end of the process, we have provided the city a geodatabase for its continuing management of that database as the city changes or new impervious area is updated. The pictures off to your left just demonstrate the process that we went through with that. Down at the bottom, you can see individual parcels where the impervious area was outlined or determined through a review of those parcels. And then in the upper left-hand corner, I've just shown a global or 30,000-foot view of the city in the impervious area. And I believe at this point in time, the impervious area is actually up on the website. So any customers could potentially go and look at their own impervious area and the measurements that have been made on those. Overall, within the city, we found that there was 54.8 million square feet of impervious area. And then I've just included a quick table in here of some of the major sources. And so starting at the top, you can just see that single-family residentials, there's about 4,600 of those, and that's over 15 million, 0.9 million square feet of impervious area. You also do have a number of non-single-family users that have significant amounts of impervious area. So stormwater assessment design, now that we have the impervious area measured, I'd like to talk about how we could structure rates to charge that impervious area or assess it to parcels. There's a couple different elements that go into this. So when we start to talk about rate structure, it's an exercise in balance. And so we're trying to, at first and foremost, recover the revenue needs of the system that we defined in the first part of the analysis, but then we're going to be trying to blend the equity of individual parcels against one another with the administration and simplicity or understanding of the fee. And so for single-family residential households, what I've got up here is a distribution. So on the bottom, moving from left to right, is the square footage measured on a parcel. And then on the left axis, the y-axis, would be the number of parcels at that given square footage of impervious area. And so a couple things that are notable here. Again, you have a flat fee currently, so you're charging all these customers the same fee regardless of the underlying impervious area. But what we can see here is there's a pretty wide distribution. Some parcels are smaller, some are wider, but there is a very defined bell curve shape to it. So there are a lot of parcels at a very similar area. Now, with regards to fee options, there's fundamentally three. There's a flat fee, which you currently have in place, which treats all parcels the same. You could also move to a tiered rate, which would look at placing parcels in buckets given their measured area. Or the third option is measured area. And what measured area means is we come up with an individualized fee to each and every parcel. It's our recommendation that you move to a tier for single-family residential. And we've gone ahead and calculated those tiers to meet the statistical distribution here. And what I mean by that is we just simply want to capture one standard deviation from the mean. And we've created a 3-tier system which looks at capturing parcels in Tier 1, which are between 400 square feet of impervious area up to 2,300. A middle tier there, which captures the majority of parcels between 2,400 and 4,400 square feet. And then for every parcel over 4,500, that would be Tier 3. For non-single family parcels.
Could you go back for a second?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Now, that's 400 to 2,300.
Yes.
So, okay, I guess anything in between falls back, falls back to, I guess, whatever's between 2,300 and 2,400. Does that fall back on the one tier, or?
So you bring up a great point. I'd love to make clarification. So what we do is we measure the exact square footage of impervious area, but one of the normal considerations is to round that measure down to the nearest 100 square feet, and so that's why you'll see that reflected in 100. So every property will be rounded down to that nearest 100. Additionally, you'll notice that Tier 1 starts at 400, like you mentioned. So 400 is the cutoff where you typically start billing with the measurement of impervious area, and that is aligned with the accuracy of the measurement of the impervious area. With regard to non-single family residential properties, they've got a similar distribution, but you will notice there are some clear differences here. And so there's no definite or defined trend here as there was in single family. The median impervious there is shown at 28,000 square feet. And then there does exist in the service area a parcel that is all the way up to 1.3 million square feet of impervious area on a single parcel. And so those characteristics lead this classification of customers to only be considered as measured so that we can accurately get the bill sized to the impervious area on that given parcel. To calculate the exact assessment, what we have done here is I've got the math I'll go through real quick. What we take is the revenue need for fiscal year 2020, and that's $1.7 million. We divide that then by the number of ERUs, which is simply equivalent residential units. So it represents all your non-residential or non-single family parcels, all your single family parcels. What do they look like if I convert them all back to if they were all single family parcels at 3,100 square feet of impervious area? There are roughly 17,078 billing units on the entire stormwater system. And so that comes up with an annual assessment of $110.71 per ERU, or per every 3,100 square feet, if you will. If we convert that to the single family tiers that I just described, that would mean Tier 1 would be $71.96. Tier 2, the average in the middle, would be $110.71, and Tier 3, the third tier, would be $192.64. So the last part of the analysis is the customer impacts. For your single-family residential customers, if you are a parcel that falls in that first tier, meaning your impervious area is on the smaller side, the current fee that would be in place in 2020 would be $725. So the annual fee that's equivalent to that, since we've recommended moving to an annual assessment, would be $87. The calculated fee based on the updated analysis, which now recognizes a smaller footprint on those parcels, would come out to $71.96. This would be a $15.04 reduction in the fee for these parcels, or 17%. In Tier 2, the middle parcel, the current fee that would be in place would be $87 again, but the calculated fee is $110.71. That would be a dollar change of $23.71, or a percent change of 27%. And then for those top tier parcels, the current fee is $87 again. Calculated is $192.64. The dollar change would be $105.84, or 121%. With regards to condo customers, I mentioned earlier in the presentation about the inequity that was present when we have a vertical development. In this particular example, there are 138 stacked units on this development. Their current fee is a little over $12,000. The updated fee would be $3,820.53. So we're seeing a significant savings on this parcels due to the right sizing of that current per dwelling fee that counts all the units vertically. One thing I would like to mention on this, I've shown this in total, but through an assessment process, this bill will be divided up and given to the individual taxable condo units as a percentage of the assessment. With regards to non-single-family residential impacts, I've got an example up here of a 34,900 square foot parcel. That is equivalent to 10.9 ERUs at that 3,100 square foot level. The current fee for this parcel is not $911.28. The update is $1,206.74. That's $295.46 or 32 cents. The main point I want to bring up with regards to non-residentials, it's been a long time since we've updated the measurements of impervious area. They've always been looked at individually in a bill created, but there will be a wide variety of impact on these customers. So I've shown this as an example where the updated measurement is greater than what's currently being billed. But there are potential cases where the bill's gone down if there's less impervious area on the parcel. If it's very similar, it's a similar bill, but if there's larger, it'll increase. I've created in this last slide a local area survey, if you will, to compare the COCO current fee, which is down there at $84 this year in total for a single-family residential unit. In orange is the COCO FY 2020 for that middle tier that the majority of single-family homes would be at. And so you can see with the adjustment, you've moved up on the list. I think there's a couple notable things when we look at these comparison surveys. So one of the things that sticks out is communities like yours that have a coastal influence, that are very close to the coast, will typically have higher costs associated with that. And dealing with the water quality projects and the flooding, they will typically end up on the top end of this list. Additionally, communities much like yours can go a long time without changing fees or change it very little and then update in 1 year to a much higher fee. And that's what our experience has been, is we've seen a lot of movement in these fees in the upward direction to deal with some of the needs on the stormwater side of the house. Implementation schedule. So this process has been going on for a number of months this year. It started in January with some newspaper advertisements to the public on the hearing of the resolution of intent. In February, there was additional advertisements with regards to the resolution of intent. And then in May, there was a public stormwater utility workshop meeting with the City Council, an agreement to move with the tax collector and property appraiser, an agreement to review potentially using that in the future. In June, there was a newspaper advertisement at first reading on final reading of the assessment ordinance, and the July final reading of the assessment ordinance. Moving forward, today we are in August. The notice letters have been mailed out, those first-class notices to properties of the intent for the ad valorem assessment, and the first public hearing this evening. In September, there will be that second public hearing on September 11th, adopt the assessment resolution, certify the roll, and also, if you were to move to the assessment, the last utility billing as it gets transferred over to the assessment. And then October, the new fiscal year begins, and November would be when those first assessments would be due by January 1, when they'd be sent out. So with that, I'd like to conclude my formal remarks, but open up to any questions or any discussion on the material covered.
Thank you for the job.
And once again, this right here is just the accept the consultant's assessment study final report. And that's what we're gonna be voting on here, so, Councilwoman Cox.
I just wanted to say that what I like about this approach, the tiered approach, the measuring approach, is that we're economic-wise, we're incentivizing the right behavior in regard to creating, paving everything over versus looking for ways to have permeable surfaces.
Mr. City Manager, you have any comments?
Not this time, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there's gonna be on the next items for the cards. What is the wishes of the council? We got a motion from Deputy Mayor Warner,
Second.
second from Councilwoman,
Did you second it?
Yes.
Okay, let us go.
second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 6, which is approve the initial assessment resolution for stormwater fiscal year 2020. And I got a number of cards here. Finance Director, do you wanna
So yes, this would be to approve the initial assessment resolution. Again, this is the first hearing, our first meeting. The public hearing is for September 11th, where it would be finalized, and you would use you would vote on it to final it on September 11th at a public hearing that's been advertised in the paper and on the first class mailing.
Okay, up first, we have Mr. Atrick Morris. If you can come up and state your name and address if you still like to speak.
I didn't have one of those papers, so I didn't know exactly where I was reading from. But,
If you could speak
I
into
guess
the mic, sir,
it
please.
I didn't have one of those papers, so I didn't know exactly where y'all was speaking from earlier, the last time you called me. But it seems like he did answer some of my questions. I know that, first of all, I live at 510 Dunley Street, Cocoa, Florida. I guess the question is, what I was looking at, like if they was going to be, well, let me ask you this. That was stormwater, and that wasn't sewage. That was only stormwater.
Just stormwater,
Only storm.
yes.
So, I guess that's,
All right,
Okay, thank you, sir. Next up, we have Mr. Chris Iorio. Am I pronouncing that right? Okay, I'm sorry if I like the name. Iorto? I don't know.
My name is Chris Iorio. I live at 109. My name is Chris Iorio. I live at 109 Riverside Drive. I have two problems with the stormwater assessment fee. My first question, the purpose of the fee is to actually pay for better control of the stormwater runoff from the properties. It would seem that a huge help would be to have a higher percentage of pervious land on each property to allow the water to percolate into the ground, lessening the need for more stormwater projects. My property has a 37.92%, we'll say 38, impervious rating per cocoflorida.org/stormwater assessment website. I'm still rated a tier 3. Other properties around me on Derby, Delanoy, and Oak Street range from 60% to 96.8% impervious and have a tier 2 rating. As I see it, using this method, a builder could get the smallest lot possible, the biggest house, etc., possibly up to 4,400 square feet. Sorry, it's late. And get a 97% impervious rating and still be a tier 2. Also, an existing property with a low percentage of impervious surface that's already in a tier 3 could cover the entire property with cement. Both of these examples would increase the stormwater runoff, but would be invisible to the proposed rating system. Conversely, an extreme example, if someone had a 10-acre parcel with 4,401 square feet of impervious coverage, and the rest was kept as a natural woodland, he would still be punished by the highest tax rate. My first question is, why were the assessment parameters set up to penalize properties with the lowest percentage of impervious surface who are actually lessening the water runoff by allowing it to percolate into the ground? The penalty of higher fees should be based on how much the property contributes to the problem of stormwater runoff by having a small amount of pervious surface square footage. If the property allows more water to percolate into the ground, it should receive the benefit of the lower fees. The square footage of the pervious portion of the properties can easily be, calculated by using some of the same information they used and put into a similar tiered rate. The assessment fee, this is my second question, will be attached to the property bill, which is a huge increase this year, plus 9%. He said 3 raises of 9%. My letter said 2. And then an additional yearly thereafter of 3% a year. I'd like to use the example of the fire assessment fee. When it was originally passed, I believe the maximum fee was capped at $120. Am I done already?
Yes, ma'am, you can go ahead and.
You could extend it.
Can I, thank you. This year I will be, was capped at $120. This year I'll be paying $215 because the maximum keeps increasing. The stories of senior citizens having to choose between medicine and food or eating dog food and cat food are everywhere. These huge yearly increases, already stated, cannot be covered by a 1 or 2% yearly increase in Social Security benefits. Plus, as shown by the history of the fire fee, the maximum cap continues to get increased when the limit is met. I would like to know if there's any provisions in the assessment that will protect the Social Security recipients to ensure they will be able to keep their homes and not lose their home in a tax sale. In summary, question 1, why penalize the properties with the highest percentage of pervious surface? And question 2, what provisions are you making to ensure senior citizens are not taxed out of their home? And then basically my fee, because I'm a tier 3, and like I said, I didn't know about his third 9%. This is just with 2 9%. My fee is going from $87 to $228 in 2022.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up, we got Mr. Frank Jones. Oh, Bridget Hagood and Frank Jones, okay.
Bridget Haygood, 1613 North Indian River Drive, Cocoa, Florida.
And Frank Jones, same address. The new way of doing the stormwater runoff shows an innovative approach. A lot of things we don't object to, the increase in price, okay, we need more money to take care of stormwater, understand that. Putting it on a tax bill, that's okay too. We have a few exceptions though. First off, we just found out this meeting, the condos aren't going to be carrying their fair share. That doesn't fly. Secondly, the way you're figuring pervious and impervious surfaces. When we built our house, when I say Bridget and I built our house, we built our house, the building department, we worked with them and made sure that pavers were pervious. That's what they told us. So we put in pavers. And they're installed by LEED, the Green LEED program, and National Building Code to be pervious. Now you want to call them impervious. If you want to grandfather us in and move forward, that's one thing. But we built according to code to be pervious, and now you want to change the rule and penalize us for building properly. Also, there's no consideration for grading, swales, and other things that we did on our property to retain the water on our property. And there should be some consideration done with that too, because if we have a little bit of runoff off our pervious driveway, but it's retained on our property, well, we should have a better credit than someone that just runs out into the street. And by your own definition, what is pervious would be like a grass or gravel driveway. Is that what you really want? And every time it rains, you have dirt, gravel, and the sand going in the storm water? I think what you want is a pervious hard surface like our pavers. Now, if we would have known when we built the house that you were going to change your rule or call our pervious surface impervious, we'd have poured concrete. It's cheaper to maintain, a lot less maintenance. But now you want to go back and change the rule, and we don't think that's equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna let everyone go, yeah. Sam Weather. Weaver.
I have,
Could I have you state your name and address?
oh, yes, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Name is Samuel Weaver. I live at 2223 Mercer Drive in what is called College Green, Cocoa, Florida. Been there since 1966. I thought that I had a unique perspective on this. It seems like the people before me have exactly the same perspective that I have. I have a pool in my backyard. I have a roof across the back of it, which has gutters on it. When it rains on the back side of my house, the water goes into the gutter and into a downspout. That downspout goes into the yard and goes into the ground. The water that comes down and hits my pool stays in my pool. That on my deck may roll off, but it rolls off into my yard. Nothing in my back part of the house goes to the stormwater problem. Now, the front of my house, between the one end and the doorway going into the house, I have no gutters. So all the water falls down into my garden and yard, not into the sewer, not into the yard. What I'm trying to say is that the gutter doesn't go in the gutter. The part between the over my front door has a spout that goes down into the garden in front of my windows in the front of my house. Some of it may overflow and go down the sidewalk, which goes into the medium, which is grass, between the sidewalk and the street. So far what I've told you is that none of the water that falls in my yard goes down into the stormwater area. Stormwater to me is the water that comes off of my property, goes into the gutter, and goes down to the thing, goes down to the sewer. So not the sewer, but the whatever. Now, between my front door and my garage, the roof is at an angle to where the water rolls off of that into the gutters that I have on each side. I got a gutter that runs from my downspout over to the edge of the roof, edge of the building. That water runs into a downspout that goes down my concrete driveway, which goes into the gutter. So what I'm trying to tell you all is the only water that comes down to my house, in my property, is the stuff that comes off of the roof into my driveway and goes down. The driveway is a two-car garage driveway, so there is a lot of water going down there. But only what comes out of my downspout. Everything else is into the pervious land. Now, my position is that I'm in Tier 3. I'm being punished because I have a pool that covers up part of my property. I'm being punished because the water in the back of the house goes down into the ground, not into the stormwater area. And what I am saying is there needs to be somebody to come out there and tell me exactly where the stormwater is coming from and where it is going. And if it's only from the driveway, then I'm in way in the wrong tier. Now, I realize that the $7 a month that I pay on my water bill is probably not enough. But that's not right now what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you raise the thing to $192 a year, that means instead of a senior citizen living on Social Security and whatever, must pay, instead of $7 a month, come up with $192 all at one time at the end of the year, along with a big tax bill, which puts an awful burden on myself and any other senior citizen that has to worry about that. So what I'm suggesting is that we change the word impervious or pervious to only cover that water that is coming from my property going down into the gutter.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, we appreciate it.
And by the way, one closing statement is, on the paperwork that I received, it said to appeal this by an email to a certain place. I did that. And all I got back from them was exactly the same thing I sent them, my name, my address, and etc. So the appeal process did not work at all.
Thank you, sir. We got it. We got you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I better take it because I might fall down. I only brought it to get something.
And we got Nancy Dean up next. It says Cape Canaveral, but
I'm going
evening.
to talk about something a little different, and it's the non-ad valorem taxes. The reason why I'm here is I just wanted to let y'all know that if you've given this a thought, but how this is going to affect me, okay? Going on the tax bill is what I'm talking about versus people paying the utility bill.
Can you give us your address?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm seeing Cape Canaveral here. And
Yeah.
I was just,
Okay. My name's Nancy Dean. I reside at 235 Coral Drive in Cape Canaveral, Florida. That's where I live. I have several properties that I own in Cocoa.
Okay.
So we need to clarify this, okay? And the reason why I came tonight is because I don't know if you guys have given this consideration of how this is going to affect me. I have several properties and I lease them. And my tenants for many years have been paying this bill on their own, their water bill on their own. I am under contract, being that I have these leased properties. I can't make any changes to that contract on all these. So by you making this change, all those tenants I have there, all those expenses are coming to me. Okay? They're not going to go, my tenant is not going to have to pay for this on their water bill. I am. Okay? Now, I've been in business for 31 years. I know all about you have to have increases to keep up. I'm not opposed to increases because I know how important they are. I wouldn't have been in business as long as I was in business if I did not have increases. This 9% is off the chart. 9% the first year, 9% the next year, then 3% is way too much. It's just too much of an increase. And the fact of the matter is that you're starting it now, so soon. I do not know who is responsible for getting these letters out. I received mine on Saturday for this Wednesday's meeting. I am actually not prepared for this. I have 7 properties in Brevard County. I needed time, so I am really not prepared tonight, but I thought I would come anyhow and let you guys know how this is going to affect people. I need to plan for that. All these changes, I'll give you an example. When these new tax bills come out, if this is adopted this way, I'll have to pay out roughly $1,000 to do this. I need to plan for that. I can't go back to my tenants and say, there's been a change. I'm gonna raise your lease. You got to give me the money for this. I can't do that. I'm under contract. So I don't know if anybody's given that any thought about, I can't be the only person that leases property in this community that's going to get hit. This is all coming on my shoulders. If you adopt this, I've got to pay for this. I can't go and get my money until these leases are done. At that point in time, if this is adopted, I can rewrite a lease and I can raise the rent to help with this, okay? That I can do. But I feel like the city has somewhat blindsided me. I had no knowledge of this. I'm under contract for years for some of these tenants, and I got to wait for their lease to run out before I can get anything. So, has anybody given that a consideration for those that, it is now my responsibility for every property that I own in Cocoa to pay for this. It's my property. Years past, you go and you get a utility bill and you sign up for it, and it's your responsibility to pay that bill. And if you don't, you could maybe go into a collection department or something of that nature. But the way you have it now, it's all coming back to the landowner, and I just don't think that's fair. If you got to do this and adopt this, I'm asking you to give more time for people that are in the same boat that I'm in, and maybe look at entertaining doing your raises and putting it on the bill or whatever next year
I
or
need
something.
you to wrap it up. We got you. We hear what you're saying.
okay?
This is not, I just want to say, this is not something we just pulled out and decided to do, but we got you. We hear what you're saying.
Okay, well,
And we
I
had
will
some,
wrap it up. Like I said, if I had gotten this earlier, I would have been more prepared, and I would have. But this frequently asked questions: is this a new fee? It indicates no. What would a new fee be if you're going to raise the rate at 9%, 9%, and 3%? Would you not call that a new fee? That's the very first thing that stuck out to me, because it looks to me like it's a new fee. So there's so much more that I wanted to go over. I'll be here at your September meeting. I'll be more prepared. I apologize that I seem like I'm not prepared. I'm not. The reason why I'm not is I got this letter on Saturday for a Wednesday meeting. So
thank you, ma'am.
I apologize.
Okay.
There is a lot more I'd like to discuss.
Thank you. Up next we have, I think, is Gene Austin. You state your name and address, sir.
Gene Austin, 1323 North Fifth Boulevard, Cocoa. Yeah, I don't think you've allowed the citizens enough time to look this over, all the data. There's a lot of budget items that's thrown around here tonight. One manager gave you a budget of capital improvements, all the things that's going to be needed to spend money on, of equipment and projects, millions of dollars. You guys just went, okay. You don't know what's in there. We don't have an itemized list.
We have an itemized list.
Oh, you have the list.
Yeah.
Is there any submarines in there or something?
We've been going over this.
Actually, it's, the agenda's been
What I'm
published.
getting at is you approved this budget, and then you had a presenter gave some data that seemed to me like it was part of that 17,000, whatever that assessment was. It's like you incorporated that improvement that you just voted on into that new formula. So I can't add any more to what people have already been saying about these individual assessments. Mine's wrong. I live downhill, Cocoa Hills. The water comes through my property, goes into the stormwater retention behind my house. It's like the square footage is wrong. Impervious area is wrong. I mean, I don't know what, so many data points about this letter just drive me nuts, because I don't think you took an average $110 as 3,100 square feet. Where do these numbers come from? Did you look at this data? Has it been broken down? I mean, it's not broken down for me. I like to be able to read it and understand it. The formula, the presentation you gave, you guys just approved it. Boom, all done. Really?
Was
that the first time you saw
it? It was
it?
approval of the presentation. It was just a presentation.
Well, he had one section of cons up there
Yeah.
that just approved the fact that you're not receiving your money from individuals at rentals or whatever the problem is, and you're using that as your formula, and you put that over to the non-ad valorem, which means you're threatening with a tax certificate sale of my property if I don't pay the tax. So you went from you got a collection problem to I've got threatening to lose my property if I don't pay this tax to Brevard County. You guys have really thought about what you're doing here?
Yeah, it's not a collection problem. The thing is, not everyone was paying into the stormwater system. And that's why we were going from the water bill to the ad valorem, because if you think about it, if you don't have a water bill, then you're not paying into the stormwater system.
I think there's a lot of data points that are not been explained correctly. I'd be nice to have that presentation, some way to see that presentation of all that data points. He's got for the citizens to look that over real quick, see what's going on with, especially the thing with the condos.
Okay.
Like I said, the excellent presentation, and this point of order, she asked you several questions. There's no action items. I don't see you guys taking any notes about action items on what she presented to you, the number 2 speaker. I didn't see, there's several items that she was addressing was square footage, a condo versus private property. You got a small footprint, and then you got 20 people living there versus, my new tier section, I'm supposed to be paying an increase.
So
we're gonna
address.
we're gonna be getting that, because they're recording this whole meeting has been recorded, and we're gonna get everything that's been stated here tonight, we will get that. And we're listening to what you're saying, the city manager, assistant city manager, we're all listening. And, but
And this is not, and we did have a workshop on this. We have been
Yeah,
studying
this goes back to January, I think they showed the timeline, but just, sir, just so you understand, and this is the first hearing of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the September 11th. We're going to take the comments and we'll provide answers, but, you know, connected to the agenda item online is both the stormwater work plan, and then this wasn't done to create revenue. This was done for the purposes of, this was established, the projects that needed to be done,
Well, I think the
and then what
citizens-
revenue needed to be to supported that. So this was a revenue sufficiency analysis.
I think the citizens need to see that report.
It's
so we can
it's
understand.
online, there's a whole,
Until it comes
there's a
up with
website.
the obvious conclusion that you don't adopt this because you moved it from the city of Cocoa collection issue, my bill, like you said, individual bills, over to the county, and now we're under threat if people don't pay their bills, whatever. It went from the renters to the landlord. That's a very good point.
Well, I just want to tell you, there's a special website that has been, if you go to that, on the notice, that has these documents, and we'll upload the presentation as well, but just that one point of the chart that was up there that showed the various municipalities and localities that use the non-ad valorem assessment, if you just take the Brevard only, you know, of 14, 9 use the non-ad valorem, and 4, one being Cocoa, use the utility bill method. So it is a more prevalent method by which in our other cities in Brevard County use.
because the increases are spread out over more people. Now,
Well,
it's certainly,
Still, the way you're assessing the pervious and impervious, area, this factors off by 600 square feet of mine. I mean, I got a less than 2,000 square foot home, and yet you've got me on the 2,400 square foot tier. It's like, where did you come up with that? You know, I mean, this data, there's no, what's the process for challenging the data that's gonna come up and assess my property and put me in one tier or another?
It's the appeal process. We can
So
break down that appeal
There is an
process.
appeals
Problem with
process.
the tier, problem with the data, and I don't think that, there's just not enough information for the citizens to look at this over. And I don't know, you've had workshops on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
Advertised, legally advertised workshops. And,
Well-
and it's been put out on our social media and Facebook when we've been doing this.
Just look at the stormwater runoff of the streets and the empty parking lots alone. That's where the stormwater problem is. It's not my property
Well,
contributing to any stormwater. You're not
actually,
doing-
every
you're not doing
property
anything with
contributes to
from my
stormwater
property.
runoff.
There is no runoff on my property to the street. I'm downhill.
it's into the pond, and the pond is one of the projects that's actually in the stormwater plan that needs to be cleaned out so that it can actually efficiently collect that water so that neighborhood doesn't flood. I would be happy to talk with you, to sit down and talk with you about every point in this plan, though, because I have been studying it. So I think we have your number here. I'll give you a call. And you're over on North Fifth. I'm very familiar with that neighborhood, and I would love to talk with you about it.
All right.
And you're making good points, but we are trying to become more storm prepared in Cocoa. And this weekend, we may even feel more strongly about that, so.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm
I
sorry.
just, no, you're fine, you're fine. I just, I don't know, there are tough decisions to be made up here, and I know we've been going through this process for quite some time now, and I still got one other individual that, one other card, but I just want people to know that this is just not something we just decided to throw together and we were gonna do this. I mean, we went back and forth with trying to make sure that we were doing this the right way, and so it hadn't been an easy process. This is not necessarily set in stone. I mean, here's like the first reading. There is a second reading. We hear some of your comments. We don't have all the answers. We know that we have some issues in our city that needs to be addressed when it comes to the flooding. You probably heard a couple of them today that came in here that had some issues with some flooding issues, and it's throughout the city. And I can't tell you what's happened in the past and what's been done in the past. I know there have been some improvements, but we gotta address those concerns, and I mean, it just, we either, take care of it now, or we suffer later. But the thing about it is, and I know during our process, one of the things I mentioned, I said, people don't mind paying if they see results. And that's the important part. And we need to be transparent, and we need to make sure that they actually see some results from any decisions that are made when it comes to any kind of fees, taxes, or whatever the case might be. But anyway, we got up, Tammy Carter is next.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Carter. I live at 1809 Indian River Drive. And I'm going to approach it slightly differently from everyone else that's presented so far, because I'm an engineer. And so I started looking at the website and trying to do some analysis. And I was kind of surprised when some of my neighbors that had a 1,000-square-foot house ended up in Tier 3. So I started looking at the data a little bit more. And so then he did the presentation tonight, and it's kind of interesting because even in his presentation, there was mistakes. He used the $84 or the $87 to calculate the percentages of increases, and then used the $84 for another slide, and then went back to the $87. And so I was looking at the Tier 1, so yes, for the first year, the Tier 1 gets a 14% reduction, but at the end of the time, they ended up paying 21.5%. Tier 2 ends up getting a 32% the first year increase. Tier 3 is a 129% increase. And I think that's why a lot of the people are upset is just the number of the increase right off the bat. But what concerns me even more is I started looking at the errors on the website and on the properties. And, you know, it's questionable if, you know, if this is something, because if my team had done this, I would kick them back and say, no, your quality's not here. So I was looking at the tiers. If you look at Tier 1 and you look at the flag, it says that there is 841 properties in Tier 1. You look up a back level flag, the Tier Level 1, there's 838. But then you look at the fee structure for the single properties, there's only 652 that actually has the fee structure of $71. There's 187 properties that's in Tier 1 that's actually being paid 110 fee. And you continue on. For Tier 1, the minimum is 627, the maximum is 2,499 square feet. And if you look at the mean average, it basically says most of those houses is chopped up against the high end there, that they up closer to the 2,000. So that's an interesting point. So you got a lot of people that's like real close together that's going to be broken into these categories somewhat arbitrarily just to get a bell curve. The other thing that was interesting, the Tier 2 minimum was 2,500 square feet. The maximum that you find in the data is a 12,750 square foot property. Okay, how could that possibly be when the cap off is supposed to be 4,400? So there's errors, and if you go through that database, there's 5 properties that have like 9,000 square feet or more in there that's in Tier 2. And I can go on and on like that there's just all kind of issues with the actual data. And then I went out and measured a couple of properties in our neighborhood and came up with like 10% or more errors in the actual measurements of the properties versus what they said using the criteria in the website. So I'm real concerned about going forward with this thing, even because it increases, is how all these people are going to pay 32 to 129% increases on fixed salaries, and that the fact the data is just totally messed up. And that was just for like 2 hours last night on the computer. And I didn't even have the real Excel database. If I had the Excel database and probably spent a couple of days, I wonder what else I would really find. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. No, sir. No, sir.
I won't say anything about it.
Okay, council, we got some discussions to make here, some decisions to make here with reference to this. And I know this is just a first reading, this is not, you know, we have our second reading on 9/11.
My question to the city attorney, regarding commercial properties that have lease agreements for 1 year, multiple years. Now that the leasee is not paying that fee, so it's going to the owner. So she's saying that the lease cannot change because they're in contract. So is there any way legally that she can still charge the leasee?
I can't answer that question because it's gonna depend on the terms and conditions of the lease and whether that issue is covered. All I can say is that the city council does have the authority to change the methodology of collecting the stormwater rate, and that is obviously subject to change depending on the discretion of the council, but, you know, that lease issue is outside of, the purview of my position as city attorney.
Any other comments? Well,
No.
no, ma'am, we're having some discussions right now. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
This is only the first reading anyhow.
Yeah, we're doing discussions and voting.
There's 2 readings on it, the first, right?
Actually, this, if you recall, so we're all clear, the council adopted a stormwater special assessment home rule ordinance a few months back. Under that ordinance, in order to impose an assessment, the city council must first approve an initial assessment resolution. And what this resolution does is it adopts the methodology, and it schedules or requires all the notices to be sent out and schedules a formal public hearing, which is contained in the notices that they have received. And that formal public hearing will be where additional public comments and then a final decision regarding the assessment will be made by the council. In this particular case, I don't think we've done it before, but this meeting was also placed in the 20-day notice, right, that went to all the property owners and the advertisement because time was of the essence to get the notice out. Ordinarily, the council doesn't even notice the initial assessment resolution meeting. So you do have one more big, formal public hearing coming up where you will consider a final assessment resolution.
Okay. Councilwoman Cox.
Just because I have questions on on our approach, and I'd like to hear from Stantec, about that in terms of the tiers and what are the alternatives to, the point made that where 1,000 square foot property was in a tier 3, and certainly their contribution to the stormwater problem, is different than a larger property in their contribution. So I mean, good points have been raised, and I'm very sensitive to this. Maybe we have a sustainable plan to make us more storm prepared, but we need to have something that's sustainable economically as well. So I am really determined, though, that we have a storm-prepared city. And, I don't know, I would love to hear what your properties, if they have flooding issues, because a lot of people in my district have flooding issues. We need to do something. And this looked to me like the most equitable. There's just no way to avoid cost increases, although I do think we need to look for every opportunity to leverage grants and working collaboratively and ways to make this more sustainable economically. But we have got to become more storm prepared. So this is where the rubber meets the road, I guess. These are the tough decisions.
And then I'd like to add that, I know they're looking at the the increases from year to year to year, that's not a guarantee. That's still up to the council to vote on that every year. Approve that every year, so. But, and I know that some folks are looking at the condos and looking at the dropping fees with the condos, and we weren't basing it on where someone live and how much money they might be making or have because of where they live. We were basing it on the structures,
contribution
yeah.
to the stormwater
Yeah,
problem.
so. What's the wishes of the council? We got a motion from Councilman Bover,
And I'm going to second that motion.
second from Councilwoman Cost. Any discussions?
Is there any way to separate, this may be a Stantec question, separating commercial properties from residential? Have you ever done that, doing a tier structure? Separate commercial from residential?
I think they are. Because they get the equivalent residential unit, and then it's based on the measurement divided by the equivalent residential unit.
Mike Burton with Stantec. They are separated in our system because only the single-family residential, which actually includes up to 3 units, is in the tiered structure, and all the other units, which are mostly commercial, are included in the measured structure. And it's because there's not a homogeneous kind of a pattern in terms of the amount of impervious area on the non-residential. You could see that bell curve was pretty defined in the residential. And if I may, one other point, if you like, on any of the parcels that people had questions about their impervious area and impervious area and all that, we could look at it. But I might point out that it's not a percentage basis. It is the actual amount of impervious surface. And if you have a property that's very large and another property that's not as large, but they both have the same impervious surface, they're going to be in the same tier. So I think there was maybe some confusion about percent. And the concept is that it's the measurement of contribution to the system before any development compared to after development. And after you have development, that impervious area puts more runoff into the system. And some of the questions about falling off a roof, going into a gutter, and that type of thing, ultimately, in a storm event, is what these systems are designed for storm events that have the first hour or 2 of duration of the storm event when there's a lot of water coming down. So if it comes off of the roof and goes into the ground, it's still taxing the ability of that pervious area to absorb the runoff, and so therefore it becomes runoff at a certain point. So, but if you have any questions about specific parcels that anybody brought up, we can take a look at them. But that's generally, where we are there. So.
Thank you, sir. We got a motion from Councilman Bover, a second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
It passes 4-5-4-1. Like I said, this is just a first reading, so I'm sure it's a possibility there will be some adjustments. So exactly.
Because, I mean, I have the reason I voted no, my property right now is flooding, right? So you really don't know how it affects someone until it affects you, right?
Yeah.
So my water does not flow. It cannot flow off my property because the sidewalk is lower than the curbing. So my right-of-ways are higher, so the water can't leave my property. It stays there up to 5 to 6 inches right now. And that was in a 7-day rain period. So I understand where they're coming from. when we talking about stormwater. I do understand we need the funds to make sure we're storm prepared, like Councilwoman Call said. I understand where they're coming from because I've been affected by the same process. So.
But, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but also just to add that in order for us to fix some of those issues that we're seeing in our city, because we have a lot of low-lying properties in our city, we're gonna have to mitigate those issues, and there's a cost associated with it, so, but anyway, it's not a done deal. We heard what everyone had to state it tonight, and I'm sure everyone's gonna be doing their homework and trying to figure some stuff out here. Because I know I'm affected by, I'm in a tier 2 as well, so, and I know there's some concerns I've had as well, so. But anyway, we're gonna move on to our multi-year contract, item number 7.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This is to approve a resolution amending the FY 2019 budget to reallocate funds from the surface water plant Clearwell Addition and Reject Pond Improvements Project, WS 1402, in the amount of $49,392.62, and from Dial TTHM Prevention and Reduction Project WS 18DT in the amount of $45,391.01, into the Groundwater Cowflow pH Adjustment Project, project number WS 19CF, to approve a resolution waiving the competitive bid process to purchase a 48-inch PCC tap services from Thompson Pipe Group, to approve the Cowflow project as a multi-year project, to approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to approve change orders in the amount not to exceed $8,617.24, which represents 10% of the contract amount, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract. It's kind of a fairly complex agenda, but to summarize it for you tonight, we have 2 projects that previously completed earlier this year. There's money remaining in those capital projects, pushing it towards a project that we desperately need to do. And I'm here to answer any of your detailed questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. We got a motion from Councilman Bover.
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. You all have your information agenda here. Oh, yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, we're gonna go back and just try to figure out, this, CRA, issue. And,
Do we have to like start with motions and stuff all over again?
well, we got, Janet and, Nancy Elliott and, McCarthy, Jim McCarthy. And,
Procedurally, Mayor, the first item would be the motion to remove it from the table if you wish to discuss that further.
okay,
I'll make that motion to remove it from the table.
okay. We got a motion from Deputy.
Microphone's not on?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
on.
So my motion was to remove it from the table so we could discuss it some more.
We got a motion from, the Deputy Mayor Warner, a second from, Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? It passes unanimously.
Okay, I'm nominating Nancy Elliott.
I'm sorry, we're not gonna take any questions from the floor, Mr. Mayor?
This is on the this is reference to the CRA. Did you fill out a card?
I'm sorry, this is for the CRA, and we've all stayed here to.
Yes, ma'am, but you still have to fill out a card. If you want to fill out a card, yes. Yeah, I don't have any cards up here with reference to the CRA.
I thought we were gonna let the people
The
who applied
applicants.
speak.
Yeah. We have 2 that's
They
here.
want
No,
to.
whatever you guys want, however you want to handle it. Do you want them to come up and speak, or?
If they want to, I mean,
There
they
is-
don't have to, but if they
There
want
is
to.
a motion on the floor.
Yeah, but there's no
think-
second so far.
Well, I'll second the motion to nominate Nancy Elliott.
Okay, we got a motion from, Councilman Bover, a second from Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
So that just
That's
makes
two
her a nominee.
Yeah, just make her a nominee.
We already had the nominees, though. They were still on the table.
No, we voted to
Well,
remove them.
somebody,
We didn't need
Oh.
we're still dealing with those same 3 names.
okay, good. At least least we're not going backwards.
You-
Let's get people that.
Hold on a second, I got this.
Ms. Shea,
Let me, I
Wait a minute,
got
Carl, we
this.
just need you to fill
come
it
on
out,
up and
though.
You can speak.
you put your information on there. They require the other speakers to do that.
We can't have three people up here trying to direct everything and the traffic that's going on up here, so I got a handle on this. Yeah, she can come on up and speak real quick, yeah.
Good evening, Pam Shea. I own Tales at the Barkery and also from Olives and Grapes. And I use the address of 308 Bavard Avenue. That's where Tales at the Barkery is located. Mr. Mayor and Council, several of us have been here as long as you have, and we have waited and to hear what the decision was going to be made on the CRA assignment. And I will plead with you to please make that determination. That seat, as you heard earlier from other people that spoke earlier, has been vacant for a long time. And to postpone this yet again is affecting all of us, okay? The whole community, not just those of us that have, vested interest in the immediate area, okay? So that's what I'm asking for you to do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. What is the wishes of the council? That's,
Make a motion that we appoint Jan Etz.
we got a motion to appoint Jan Etz and a second from, a motion with. Yeah, I'm, we got a motion to appoint, Jan Etz. We got a second from Councilman Bovair. Any comments?
You did it before.
You did it before, yeah.
You did it before.
Oh, man. Okay. We got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have 4-1.
4-1.
Now, do we,
4-1.
Congratulations,
She
Jan.
wins, right? 4-1.
Yeah.
That's it. Hey, James, you awake?
Welcome aboard, Jan Etz.
Thank you. I will.
And thank you to everybody else who applied.
thank you, man.
I won't let you down.
And I just wanted to add, because something was said earlier about the Cocoa Hot Coors, that they did reach their target. They have met their target, so they're on their way, and I thank all the folks that donated and contributed to the chorus. They performed this past Sunday at the St. John's Church. They did a wonderful job, but they did meet their target. And I just need to get a consensus from the council. They're going to be leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning, and I had promised them, and I had stated that hopefully we can give them a police escort to the airport so we can send them off in good fashion and to the airport, and then hopefully
Oh, the chief will do that
get some of
himself.
our residents that line up and hopefully get some of our residents that want to come out 4 o'clock in the morning to see them off, to come out and wish them farewell and
Yeah, the chief.
safe journey.
Mike, let me use your car. I'll escort him out.
So if we can make that happen, I would like to make
Do
that
we
happen.
know what date that is?
She's gonna get back with us on that, and so I just,
Yeah, if I can be out at 7 in the morning for the football team, I guess I can be out at 4 for the chorus.
yeah. Is that a possibility? I'm just want to make sure from the chief or city manager and the council, and we did it for the football team. We supported those guys with their efforts, and this is just over to the airport and back. You know, I mean, you escort them over there and then just come back.
Personally, yeah, the chief person. No, I'm just kidding. Sounds like like a job for Lieutenant Delator.
It's, what's the wish of the council? I mean, are you all in support of that? or-
Yeah, well, yeah, that's great. Yeah, no problem.
And then once she gives us a date, once you give us a date, then we'll rally the community, come out at 4 in the morning and just see them off and kind of line the roads there as they leave the school campus, so. Okay, if I can get a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We got a motion adjourned from Councilman Bover, second from Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? It passes. Thank you.
Hey.